Okay.
Okay, we're gonna call our budget workshop in session here, as we're eating our lunch at 12:01.
She's already done.
Which one?
Handing
No,
out
no,
our
no. Which one call?
burger notes for today.
I'll take the grilled cheese. I'll get it. I'm sorry.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah, I have to watch the vegetables.
Hang on, sir.
Anything that causes gas, causes radiation.
Would you like something? I'm pretty sure what she's gonna tell us is at the end of this year, we're gonna be. Not this year.
Check out what's next.
You're close this year.
Yeah.
Okay. The first thing, under tab 1 is the final comps. We usually just look,
Yeah.
we usually go through this to see the changes from year to year and what it looks like, this current year. This is a basic aid that we will get for this upcoming year for FY '26. So on that first sheet there, you can see the basic state aid allocation, and I usually just do the 4 years, because there's 4 columns there. FY '23, what it was to FY '24, FY '25, and then this year for FY '26, it's $12,688,130. So that's a $334,840 increase
That's your vote
from the prior year.
Why was it such a big increase from 23 to 24?
Well, there's a lot that makes up that. There's a lot of different categories. So, part of that increase is gonna be the 14% for PDIA. They gave us what was projected to be the 14% increase. So a piece of that, a part of that is gonna be that. Then the average salary that we get, our state aid based on usually increases some because people have more years experience or some of that is a little bit increase. And also our bus allowance is also in there, so depending on how much expenses we had that were reimbursable up to our, for Sparks County, that's 95-point-something% reimbursed. Depends on how much of that we use. It's two years ago, so the FY '26 allowance in that state aid calculation would be from FY '24, what was actually spent 2 years ago.
Okay.
So, that gets factored into it as well. So like last year, from '24 to '26, there was a huge increase. And part of that was due to the raises that the state gave. So sometimes there's that as well that changes it, but that year it was like 600 and some thousand that increase. Sure. Due to that. But anyway, those are the increase for this year and where we're at. So the next page is where I got that amount. You can see our basic state aid allowance for Hardin County in the first column, and then what we lose for charter schools, students that are in charter schools within this county, and then what our adjusted basic state aid will be.
Did we actually have students from Hardin County that go to charter
Yeah, and if you look, it's on page
outside the county?
3.
Mhm.
Oh,
They go to virtual ones. And then down below on that page, I just put the amount, the 18,368,710. That's what, went to charter schools the prior year. So you can see how that's increased about $8 million, from last year to this upcoming year.
how many actual physical charter schools are there in West Virginia that have a physical building?
3,
3 or 4, yeah.
somewhere in
They use
there.
the Panhandle around Morgantown.
I think Martinsburg has one.
Lawrenceburg has one.
Charleston and Morgantown maybe? Or maybe it's, Wood and I'm not
They're
100% sure what they're,
listed on page 2,
Oh, okay, thank you.
but
Oh, there
it
we go.
doesn't necessarily say,
where.
like some of them say virtual, so
Oh.
you know that those are virtual. but-
I think that's the biggest one, is the virtual charter.
So they didn't have, and on page 3, you can see who, that might help you figure out where they're located by the number of students from the different counties that are living there. They
It's
did, I
Jefferson.
couldn't find the total for enrollment. Well, there it is. With the prior year, there wouldn't have been, never mind. I was thinking this was giving us a calculation for the upcoming year. But this is the total enrollment for 24-25, which was 3,366 students.
How many in home states?
Oh, geez, I have no idea.
Oh, I thought maybe on another page.
Oh, I mean, it is probably somewhere, but not a number that I'll ever really look at.
Sure.
I'll see back here. I don't see that. And then the page after that enrollment factor for the virtual or the charter schools is the state aid compensation. So this kind of breaks that down more, Mr. Harper, from what all is included in the total. Step 1 is professional educators. Step 2 is service personnel. Step 3, fixed charges. So that's like all the retirement, the social security, the Medicare, the payroll taxes, all that stuff that we pay on all employees. Transportation allowance. PSSP is like our social workers, nurses.
So you got
those
carrots,
folks,
you don't have any onions or anything.
guidance counselors. Step 6, sub-cost,
Didn't have
and
onions
faculty
on it,
senate, and then step 7 is improvement in instructional programs.
Yeah.
That
They just
our technology, mentoring, advanced placement, some of those. So you can see each category, most all of them have increased, the only one that decreased was the step 5 for, PSSP, and the only thing could possibly be around the state, the average salary for that has decreased, so if folks retired and newer with less experience, something like that, has caused that to decrease. To get to what the basic, step 8, the basic program allowance is. And then on the next page, it shows you going across there, where each one, I just underlined, I tried to make it a little more user-friendly this year with underlining
Very
and putting some page numbers at the bottom, but couldn't. I
Thank
don't know if it made it the whole way through. So you can see each one of these, so each one of these steps, Mr. Harper, is what makes up the state aid formula. And each one of these steps has a calculation and a formula in itself. But step 1 is the first page there that ends up with the different A, B, and all of that coming to the allowance for professional educators. So the salary for professional educators. Step 2 is the allowance for service personnel. Step 3 is the fixed charges, which we talked about, so the workers' comp, social security, Medicare, and those. 4 is our bus allowance, transportation. 5 is the professional student support personnel. 6 includes faculty senate and allocation for substitute costs. Step 7, instructional programs, technology, advanced placement, and the leader and teacher function. Let me get this stuff there.
With the sub allocation, how do they calculate that? Is it based on
The average
average
month-
of all across the state? Okay. That's what I
Yeah,
figured.
the challenge is based on the cost of shipping out, except for the bus allocation is a little different.
Very good turkey.
Then, of course, they take, local share, which always ends up being, well, I shouldn't say always. The last couple of years of the calculation that I did with the local share ends up being right around 86-87% of what we're expected to get from the real estate, from the property tax that we collect. Which is why it leaves that little bit of potential to,
Is there always an increase in that, Sarah? Or not?
I mean, there has been this housing.
Okay. Because I can say, every now and then you get that in the mail that your taxes are going up on certain one of your properties. So they I would assume that should go up every year.
So, now, certain places like, I think Dogridge is going back on, we're actually going to get maybe state aid this upcoming year. So I think sometimes when you lose like gas and oil, like maybe when that stuff depletes, maybe, or how, I'm not sure how that works, but when you lose,
They stop letting the drill head, pretty much. In fact,
so then that has decreased, those decreased theirs. But other than that, I would assume normal, you could probably expect regular property to continue to go up.
Aldridge, they paid the way, didn't they? 7 years ago, they didn't get that state aid.
They had it for now, but I think this upcoming year, we're gonna get state aid again.
Down in maybe Tyler.
Tyler will still not get any, what's, well, maybe Austin, there's about 5, I think. Anyone have any questions about any of that?
Now, we're doing this, now, could any of this change where they decrease something?
None of this should change, because these are the well, the only way that anything could decrease would be if we all of a sudden have more students attend the charter schools.
Okay,
But everything else is set as is. But
okay,
I guess if we had another 10 enrolled,
and that would hurt us.
right, we'd have to account for that in this. But otherwise,
And would we know because they would take money for it?
they would send us, they would notify us.
We get that.
Yeah, so we would know. We would know. The next tab, if no one has any questions about that, is the projected net taxes. And these are the projected taxes to be collected. There you can see the last 4 years, Mr. Hines, it's increased each one of those years at least. So the increase this year is 162,315.
So, I mean, it's not a great amount, but it's good, a nice little,
Mhm.
They're reassessing this year, I think.
thank you, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one.
So that'll be for
7,
27.
8. Because this is 25, 6. This is for the upcoming year projected, Sarah? Yeah.
Yeah, this is for FY26. And we went over, I attached the levy order and rate sheet behind there just so you can see where that 6,350,000 comes from. And then also just for the bond levy as well, which that goes directly to the West Virginia Municipal Bond Commission towards our bonds. And then the page that comes from the Municipal Bond Commission is right behind that breaks that down on what we have to raise from the bond levy, and then the amount of that that's principal and interest. And then the last sheet there is the approval. So once you guys approve that levy rate, we send it to the state, and then that's their approval. They approve it.
Now, what's the last date on, when is our school bond paid off?
It's projected, it's originally set to be paid off June 30th, 2030, but I believe we're gonna pay it off like a year and a half early. I think we're on pace to pay it off early.
Which is good.
That's good.
Mhm.
I thought it was 2030, but
That seems like it's just yesterday,
Time flies.
for 2015.
Somewhere in there.
Hopefully they start, finished in 17, in construction, I think.
So the bond probably was about 2,000, when it actually passed.
There's something dated 2012, but that was talking about.
That's when it originated. I don't know when they actually started building and doing all of that, but yeah, it was, the bonds were 2012. No questions? Tab 3 is, budget breakdown. The first one is our fund, well, the first one I put in here is Fund 21, which is our municipal bond commission payment. And the amounts that are on there, the the taxes that we'll collect, and then the breakdown of the principal and interest. And like we just saw, that comes directly from the municipal bond commission. And on the page 4 there, has the outstanding as of 24, so then I subtracted approximately what it would be for at the end of June in 25, and then bond expires 6/30/30. So you guys can see that. The next page starts Fund 11. I probably need this more complete, but anyways, the top is the unreserved fund balance, and that's what we had projected it to be, 1.2 million. Below that is the taxes that we're projected to collect for the year. Below that, the 20,000 is estimated. Usually when the taxes come in, they separate it between our fee and the different accounts. We just leave 20,000 there as estimated in that one. Interest is below that at 175,000. That's from the banks, and the 500 that's estimated below that is interest from the property taxes that we collect. We usually get a little bit of interest on the amount that they send us. The one below that for 35,000, school activities, that's the travel, that is done at the school level. The
field
15
trips,
athletics, those kind of things. Below that is the reimbursement that comes from the school for certain stipends or payments that they have within their buildings, that they've asked above and beyond what we do here. So these amounts are all just estimated because it depends on how many they take, how much they do. The reimbursement from other government, the 25,000 that's estimated there, that's like our percentage that we get back from using the purchasing card from the state. It's the fuel tax that we file and get a refund for. A couple times, it's those kind of things that go in there. Below that, estimated at 15,800 is other. That's kind of where we start everything else that might come in that's not specific to any of the other categories. Like for instance, if the school if we purchase something for a school and they reimburse us for it, sometimes we'll throw it in there. It's not a huge amount, or we can't just put it back against the purchase. And below that is the state aid that we're projected to get, less the step 7A amount that has to come out of it. So if you take that amount and add what you'll see later in step 7A, you'll get to the 12,546,000 in state aid that we're projected to receive.
so the 648, 428 is what?
It's step 7A, and you'll see it over here on the next page. The 991,000 is, it's attached on, and all of this is attached here, but it's the retirement allocation. And it's preliminary, so it's not final, but it's what they project for FY 26. Below that is 149,000, that figure you saw earlier, that's the charter. They'll actually give us the full amount, and we have to, well, we have to account for that amount. They don't give it to us, but we have to still recognize it as a revenue and an expense.
So you're just showing that as money in, money out.
Yeah. Because they consider it paid on our behalf.
Right.
I got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that means that the charter schools really don't hurt us if they're giving it to us. And
They're not really giving it to us, we just have to show that they paid it for us. So it's funds that we would have gotten,
okay,
but we're
okay,
losing, but we still have to show it as a state,
that we received it from the state.
and then we'll show it as an expense. So really,
It's
it's
just a paper.
right, it's just a paper trail that we're reporting it,
But otherwise, if we weren't having charter schools, that money would be coming to us.
assuming that those students
Right.
would be, would be in our schools. Then that's money that we would have. Below that is the, estimated RHBT amount that we went away from and didn't have any a year and a half ago, then they brought it back halfway through the year, and now I guess it's back for the whole year, this upcoming year. Of $29,808. Below that is the, unfunded retirement allocation. And that is projected based on last year's amount, because if you look at page 9 behind all this, and you don't have to do it right now, but whenever you do, you'll see down in the bottom, left-hand corner, 25's amount was only finalized on February 6th of 2025. So that always comes really late in the year. So when we, for budgeting purposes, we always use the prior year amount. Below that, the $2,748,000 is the PEIA allocation, which is also attached here on page 7, where you can see that amount. Below that is the indirect cost charged from Fund 61. That's just an estimated amount. The rate that we can charge for this upcoming year did go up a little bit. I worked on the indirect cost rates the other day. We had to certify them and get them in. They were due by Friday this last week. So the amount did go up, but that's just like the federal programs, like the title programs, special education, we're allowed to charge a certain rate to that program for administrative costs and move it over to the general fund. So that amount is just estimated there. Medicaid is estimated at $183,000. And then below that, you'll see the step 7A. So all of those amounts, those two amounts, plus the three amounts on the other side, will equal to $648,000.
Okay,
And it's also broken down on tab 4 as well.
So the PEIA, that 2 million, that totally covers all their insurance costs?
They're saying that it should pretty much cover all of it. That it increased the 14% that ours was supposed to increase. Now, what maybe we didn't get an increase because of that increase, I don't know, but hopefully it all.
there'll be a rude awakening.
So then, yeah, and step 7A is behind tab 4, so we can go into a little more detail on those 5 numbers there. Down below that is $284,000, that's the bus replacement allowance. That is on page 11, you can see that amount, and then the AP advanced placement is the $6,155. That's on page 12, as well as what we will get for technology. Step 7B, technology, $462,915. It's also on page 12. If you want to see where those, verify where those numbers came from. And maybe I made it more confusing, but the number on the left side of it, because some of these numbers were on the same page. So I tried to do on the left-hand side, just put that number beside which number it correlated with, and then on the right-hand side is the page number, right at the bottom. So if I made it more confusing, sorry.
Okay, I see that. All right, thanks, buddy.
What's on, it's on page 9. It's talking about the PEIA. What it says here, estimated RHBT portion. What does that mean? It's the second column.
That's the RHBP that they brought back that we didn't have. And then
But what does RHBT stand for?
it's the, I don't know exactly what it stands for.
Where are
I
you?
can go.
So it adds,
Oh, 9 and the, okay, that 9, sorry.
because I mean, the estimated PEIA portion and the estimated RHBT portion, they add to make the allocation.
It's it has to do with the retirees, and I'm not exactly sure how they calculated it, but they did away with it for a while, and then they brought it back.
You're talking
And
about,
it used to be a lot, it's the OPEB portion,
Yeah, what used to be OPEB.
yeah.
okay,
And it used to be more than this amount. Then they completely did away with it, and now it's
okay.
back. And I think it has to do with the retirees portion. I can find out exactly.
I just wonder
What it
whenever I
is.
see that stuff, what it is, you know.
Something retirees health, something trust, I think. But
Right, health benefit trust.
it might be retirees health.
Retiree Health
Benefit
Benefit
Trust.
Trust Fund, that's it,
Something
yeah.
trust, but, I'm not sure how they calculate it. I mean, I know it's based on the amount of retirees we have that are still in, you know,
And it was where those folks hadn't paid there wasn't enough money in their accounts to get all the benefits that they're getting. Isn't that what it was?
Well, they originally made us recognize, and that happened years and years and years ago, an amount, like a fictitious amount on the balance sheet for what they were accruing the
Mm-hmm.
boards, but I used to do audits for like the counties and stuff like that, so it was subject to them as well. And they would just keep accruing it to show what they potentially owed, but they were never gonna collect it. And then
But you had to hold it.
right, it's a weird, but this, I don't think is quite the same as that,
Okay.
but, I'll find out more about that.
We just try to be aware of everything where they're taking and giving so that we can be more accurate, you know.
Anyone have any other questions on any of that?
I thought I saw something that you were reading through here about. I just not find it again. And allotment for athletics. Would that be for salary?
You saw athletics where we just went through?
Yeah. Is the last item on that. Wait, you did find it on-
All of that.
I didn't hear like,
And the
you said send out
differences.
trips, athletic trips, but I
No, that
remember
was,
being
that was
called
on
that.
another, it said field trips and athletic trips, but this was not under trips.
I guess. It's on that allocation of unfunded retirement appropriation for the teachers. And it says here percent of covered payroll. And then unfunded.
Oh, here it is.
What's the variance there in the percent of covered payroll? How does that variance occur? Is it based on your formula?
This is probably, it's gonna also have to factor in all the retirements. Cause they're different, like some in the old retirement system. I can get you a breakdown.
Well, I'm looking here and, a lot of them are, okay, like, just look at the West Virginia Academy. Percent of covered payroll, it says 0.08%. Go figure, and then ours is 0.75%. Gilmer's is 0.39. You just wonder what's going on with that.
What page are you on, Dixie?
It's page 1, but it's all, can you see what it looks like?
So, yep. Thank you.
There's such a variance, and like Berkeley County, 6.59. And then there's
Those are
Kanawha.
it says TRS, participating employer.
Yep,
Just the
it's
TR,
different.
yeah, just
It's
TRS,
just
yeah.
a different retirement. And so
Mhm. The
that's
percentage of folks that are
percent.
covered out of that retirement versus the other retirements. Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, I've done it. Now, also the- on this page, mine isn't numbered, but it just has the 3 items, that was it. The last item there is athletic.
Yeah, these are the expenses. I haven't gotten,
204,000.
that's gonna be all expenses associated with athletics.
So
not money to get.
transportation.
This is
It's not money to get,
expenses.
it's money to pay out.
Okay, I guess that's my question, because I understand that there is no money budgeted for athletics. So what is
What do you
this?
mean by no money budgeted for
We
athletics?
we don't pay to have a football team, right?
We pay all coaching salaries.
Well, I guess that's my question, is this,
That would
we
be,
pay is what is budgeted for athletics is actually coach's salaries?
that should be the majority. Now, there might have been a little expense here or there in the past where we paid to repair something or replace something.
Okay, but that's not for paying for buses and bus drivers and,
No, the
Oh,
school's
okay.
reimbursed for all that.
okay.
That
was
That would be
my
under
first-
transportation, yeah.
that
Yeah,
was my-
90%.
And most
because
of that, I'm sure would be.
I'm personally hit
salary.
by that question. Why do the schools not support athletics? And so there's an indication that we are.
Yeah, the county does.
But mainly just salaries.
Okay,
That's
that's what I
probably
wanted,
85,
that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, because,
That's salary.
one of our teachers stated publicly that they got no money for their team.
Mhm.
And it's like, that, I knew that wasn't so, that we paid the coach's salary and the buses and all that, but I guess the discretionary money, is it up to the athletic director, the gate fees and stuff like that, which they don't.
For the
make much on
the
gate.
administration actually
Yeah.
decides how it's budgeted.
And all that stuff would be paid for baseball, football, they would be paid out of-
And
From the
boosters,
school.
yeah, and boosters pays for some of that.
No.
As a board.
No, we don't as a board. We don't finance it. And the state doesn't provide us any, when you look at all that incoming money through state aid, there's not a line item that looks at athletics
Now,
and
if you
funds
had a
that.
Levy, you could specify the
Right.
levy that so much is going to be spent on, right, Dr. Bailey?
That's correct, yes. As long as it's not something that you're
Might be a
already
selling point.
paying for, yeah.
Yeah, that'll have to probably go
Okay,
in.
Well, like I said,
I just,
there's some
I'm satisfied.
schools that they pay, that's part of the levy, they let everybody come into games free, the public,
Mhm.
because it's paid out of the levy. That's one of their quirks to get them to pass. That's why Upshur County got theirs.
No, it's in Grant.
Grant County does.
Yeah.
Well, we might want to think about that.
It usually works. Saves you a lot of, most people don't pay, you get a lot of games, you didn't pay that much in taxes. The increase, the levy increase. And you do pay the regular rate. All right.
So these are all the expenditures that are budgeted, behind what Janet just got to. The 28,019,995,000.
Where are you, sir?
She's on this page right here. She's right after page 6 here. She's not behind 4 yet. She's in there, yeah. If you find the 6, about middle way through that section. There you go. Next page. This is right after this. That's what Janet was just talking about.
So you were talking about travel expenses and sporting. It used to be years ago that the schools were allowed so many miles. How does that work now?
So we don't charge them miles, we only charge them for, an approximate cost for the bus driver. So since we, in theory, are reimbursed at the 95% rate for their travel, we don't do the mileage any longer. But we do not get reimbursed for the cost of the bus driver, so we bill them the hourly rate.
The schools themselves are billing them,
Yes, the schools themselves,
and they're all current on that, I assume.
yes.
On the field trips.
Yes.
Same.
And
Now they get so many free trips if they're local for rewards and things like that. So like we don't bill them to take them to the pool or to the movie theater. And I think we even put a radius. There's so many miles because if you're a school at East Hardy, you have to go a little farther. So we I think kind of specified that within reason, maybe even is how we put it. But
Yeah, and I know we did
Yeah.
number, like a certain number, like the band and some of them get.
That's
so
right.
many
mhm, free
Before,
trips.
before there's any cost associated with it, but we used to, so when I got here, we used to also bill them per mile. So, yeah,
I remember the day.
we changed that. Now, there may come a time I don't know if we need to do that, but I just felt like that was kind of, since we're getting the reimbursement, I mean, I guess we could have billed them at 5%, but
I argued the previous superintendents many times over that.
Yeah.
Because I used to take a lot of field trips once a month with FFA. And
Gets
I'd get
expensive.
charged,
yeah.
as you know. And I said, well, you know,
Yeah, it seems a little, I mean, I guess you get a fine maybe,
Thank you.
or.
Some down this way.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Hunt.
This was just to show you under the income section, we have projected the carry forward, the fund balance to be 1.2 million. Since doing all of that, the real estate, the last check we got for property tax was larger than normal at that point in the year. So we're currently 276,000 above what we estimated we would collect from property tax. The prior year, May and June, for 24 was like 56, 58,000, something like that, and then like 38,000. So I just did an estimate there for approximate what we would collect for FY25 in those 2 months, but only used 25,000 of it to use 300,000 in property tax over to the left. We received 100,000 for increase in enrollment. It was like 98,000. I put it down there, 97,069 below there. Estimated that at 100,000, and then usually once we start closing all of those encumbrances, ones that just haven't gotten closed out during the year, or one that we have buffered a little bit, it'll probably be even a little bit more. But I'm just going to put 100,000 there for $500,000. So before I submit this budget, if it's all right with you guys, I'm going to change that 1.2 million fund carry forward to actually be 1.7 million. I think that'll be a little bit more in line with what it'll actually be.
Now, okay, that's what we'll have carried over. But how about all the bills that we owe, the outstanding bills as of June 30th?
The outstanding bills as in, like anything we still owe for this year, or are you talking about like debt that we have?
For this year.
For this year, they will be they're always accounted because they're accounts payable, so we still have
So
to pay
you
them,
have them
so we don't
encumbered.
close, right, we don't close out the year until all of those bills get paid. So that's why we in theory close at June 30th, but we don't actually prepare the financial statements until September 30th, because it takes a while to get, I mean, there's a period there where we're working in the current year, the prior year, and still looking back
We'll still be in the black at the end of the year.
at this year. Well, yes, Mr. Hines.
You get a raise.
All right.
Which if you're in the red, does the state after so many years come in and investigate you, like we used to be in Dixie and I for,
Yes, they come in and take you over.
or you hire your grandson and he's sex offending.
Yes, that'll get you taken over also.
Nicholas County. We're not talking about
Yeah, we are.
Well, he is, but not really. Isn't that what they said?
Donna, didn't you say that the state recommends X% of your budget to carry over?
Mhm.
Are we above that?
Yep, and we've worked hard. Sheena's worked very hard at trying to get us back within formula and stuff like that, so, I feel confident about where we're going into next year. We just need to keep that in the back of our mind and not, not go on the shopping spree.
Right.
But,
I don't think this county's ever had that, luxury to go on.
to spend as we want.
Maybe more so in other grounds, if you had COVID, you have a little bit. We haven't had revenue.
Well, we still do have some funds to put out of that. We know that, out of that 1.7, we have to make our match, or our contributions, not match, but our contribution for the SBA projects that are going on currently and stuff like that. So, and we still have 2 payments left on the field lights. And all that's back here as well. But if you flip a couple more, 2 more pages maybe, it's Fund 51. It's written at the top. This is written at the top. And that's our SBA project. And we had to budget it based on what percent they thought they would complete during the year. So when we budgeted FY 25, we budgeted at 50%. So this is the remaining 50% for this current upcoming year.
I saw where all the units and stuff are, have you all noticed that, are sitting out on the playground, up on the top
hill.
there? Mhm.
It's a happening.
After that is Fund 61. And I handwrite this because I wanted you guys to see the difference in the years. And I can't do that in our system any other way because the project changes based on the year. So the top line is the state special education amount that we get. Special Education Department has not released any amounts for this upcoming year. And said that it probably wouldn't be until July or August. So I don't know what they're gonna, obviously they'll have to change it, but like their budget's due in GPS as of June 30th. They're not expecting to have any figures and suggested that we use the prior year amounts for budgeting purposes. So, $76,600 is what we used for that amount. And this column to the right, the reason it's different is because when we, sometimes federal will change their amounts a little bit during the year. So when we budgeted this for prior year, it was 78,000. We ended up getting $76,600. Below that is the professional development. That is based on the total that we're getting for professional personnel, multiplied by 1%, then divided by 10 is how that is calculated. So based on what we're getting out of step 1 in the state aid formula, that's multiplied by 1% and then divided by 10, and that amount is used for professional development based on the committee's choice for professional staff. Down below that is the same for service personnel. That's step 2 of the state aid formula multiplied by 1% and then divided by 10 to get to the $3,725. And we also have a service staff committee that determines that as well. Or votes on that, like what those amounts are used for. Below that is the what we will receive from faculty senate that is current off of the state aid formula. Below that is the mentoring amount. You can see that that has gone up quite a good bit. From the prior year, it was 84,000. It's up to 132,000. And a lot of times that's based on the age of your employees.
Yeah, a lot of new.
If you have a lot of new folks coming in, then it'll increase. If you have older folks or older experienced, I guess I should say, not necessarily
You
older
can say,
age. That increases and decreases based on that. Below that is Title III. The EL, well, not Title III, it's the EL portion of the state aid that we received and we used prior year there because that has not been released yet. Title II federal programs has been released. That's the current amount projected. You can see that it decreased from 83,000 to 66,000. Below that is Title I, and it decreased from 638,000 to 559,000.
Why the decreases in those two?
Federal funds decreased overall, so the state of West Virginia, I believe, received about 10 million less than they normally receive.
So they just divided it out based on how did they decide how much your decrease was?
I don't know how they determined how much our decrease was, but they did the same thing they always did based on the total amount. I don't know what they do at their state level
prorated, wouldn't
to allocate it out. It's based on our student numbers,
I
but
was gonna say.
then they got less, so they had to make all the numbers all less. So
And don't they look at our direct cert
Look at our direct
Numbers
service
and
total number
determine.
of kids in schools and all that
Yeah.
stuff, but
They have a formula based on need
But
that they
it's
look
all-
at too.
less than it was for the states. They,
Yeah, and those October numbers, was it 2104, was that what it was? I don't know.
I don't remember off the top.
2184, I believe. Well, you're just talking about total enrollment?
2024 was the last.
That was total enrollment.
Well, this is what
She's talking
was-
about
we got
October child
credit
count.
for Our
The first
October.
time.
She's talking about the October child count. That was
Oh, so it was
2184.
Yeah, that was 2184, but federal programs, I don't think it counts, because
They
these are
don't
like
count
the
all the
type,
kids.
right, they only serve certain schools and certain levels. So I don't know that the 2184 has anything to do with it. It might be the
It'd be
students
like the
within, like the elementary.
1,038 who were low SES.
Mhm. They work with, I think, DHHR to pull the direct cert numbers as the folks who qualify for any type of public assistance. So I think that's how they get their baseline. And they look at that percentage, and then based upon the federal funds the state's awarded, the state uses a formula based on those numbers to distribute it to
Okay,
the state, the county school
It's
systems.
decreased the last couple of years, just not as significant as it did this year, but it's been on a downward.
We're
It's been
taking a
going
hit
down
based
every
on a
year.
decrease of federal monies that's been allotted is essentially what's happening.
But this year it was pretty significant. In all of them, in all the title programs, and I'm assuming special ed is going to be similar.
Yeah.
So below Title I is Title IV, and that's the actual there, 38,000 from 48, so it lost about 10,000 there. Below that is special ed, which we were told to budget the prior year, which would be 654,000. That's the preschool special education amount. They said the budget the prior year, 22,524. And then, Title III, EL, federal funds. We don't have that amount yet, told the budget the prior year, $36,740.
so any of those special ed programs, you said that you don't ever get your, what do they hold on to the money to make sure it's gonna make it, or what goes on with that? It
I'm not
doesn't
sure, it's been
seem
later
right.
and later every year. But last year, I think it came out right when we had this. It must have, because I actually had last year's amounts were actually budgeted on there. So I think it came out like the week before or something, and I had to go back in and change it. It seems like that happened right before we had this meeting last year where we went over the budget. It was like right then. But usually by the end of May, they've always had them out. And this year, special education department has said, we don't look for them to be out prior to June 30.
I wonder if that's because of everything that's happening with the Department of Ed and.
Yeah, I'm sure that it has to do with new administration, and it's just a first year, and so that they're going to they're not going to tell you anything, send you any money they can't
Yeah.
guarantee you're going to
I'm
get.
just surprised that they haven't, like, if we have heard some of the title funds, what we're receiving, while we haven't heard some of the special, I don't know why. It's further behind when
It's
it's
been a
all
lot of-
federal funds, but
Yeah, there've been a lot
I
of
would say it has
IDEA
been.
talk, so I would say,
yeah, it's all related.
yeah, I'd say that's what it is.
But it doesn't, I mean, I understand that they're trying to be fiscally responsible, not to give you money and then have to ask for it back. But at the same time, they're denying you money that is actually yours.
I think it'll come. I think that they're being very thorough with reviewing and making sure that those budgets are tight and that we're going to get exactly what we're entitled to. I think, I mean, that's kind of been a theme with the new administration. So I think that they're just making sure that when they send it, it's finalized and accurate.
So they're.
Just taking
when-
longer than normal.
So they're doing that and they're doing it before June 30th.
Right.
Because otherwise they would, I would think, be in trouble for holding those funds.
Yeah, I don't think at this point we're not entitled to them yet. So I think you're right. I think there's a timeline that they have to
Yeah,
meet,
and
and they're,
they-
instead of giving it to us early to do our budgeting, I think they're just going to wait until.
Yeah.
They're
they
short.
very
extended it until July 1.
Okay.
And then below that is all child nutrition. Her budget, state funds, the, extra grant that she gets there. This year we got 15, we projected it at 12, because we've been 12 in the past. This year we got 15,500 and some, I think. So, we estimated it at 15,000 again for this upcoming year. And then those were her lunch numbers and breakfast numbers based on, the average number of meals for this past year. Well, actually for 24, because it was a completed year. And her budget's back here to see that those numbers match. But anyway, the next page after that is where the calculation came for the, professional personnel. The page after that is for the, service personnel, professional or development.
Yeah.
The one after that is for capital expenditure, only that's 60,000 should be 50. That's our 50 numbers there.
And those two, the school support program and the 3725 and the 8,917, those are the pockets of money that we work with those committees on spending, right? Just to clarify that there's a committee that actually Emily Thorne oversees and is in charge of that meeting with those committees. And then the staff development committee determines and approves requests for spending of that small pot of money. And the same with the service personnel. So that's not included in what we schedule our countywide stuff on. Those are actually awarded to them to determine how they want to use it. Just to clarify on those two.
Capital expenditure there. The page after that shows the step 7B, that's the mentoring fund, 132,000. And then behind that is what we have received so far for the federal programs. The first column is Title I. The next column with the amount circled is Title II, and then the last one's Title IV. We've not received the Title III or the state EL funds. And the page behind that is the food. Our budget, see the 50 million. Is what those numbers total.
So this is all, this sheet here of the ones that we've gotten, that's title funds. And so how much do you think that we're gonna get?
For special ed, or you mean?
Well, for these allocations, we didn't get Title I, Title III, our state EL funds.
We did get Title I's the first column. We don't receive any of the Title 1B. That's not something we get anyway. We got the
Okay.
Title I amount. We got the Title II amount. The Title III are the two that we have not. Title III EL and then the state EL are the two that we have not received. The Title III EL is typically around 30,000, and the state amount is usually like 6,000 or 7,000.
So around 37,000.
Is that
Only like 33 and 6, so like 39,000.
And we don't have any reason to think that we won't get those.
no? I would just say
All
they're
of them,
gonna
I
be
would think those will come.
decreased, 20% or so would be my guess.
Okay.
In special education, no idea. How much, like if it would be the same or if it's gonna be decreased as well, I'm not sure.
Is that touch from the state, or touch from the federal government?
Federal.
I'm sure. So,
Man, so look what we had to transfer, 740,000
yeah, we just watched
for
it.
That's
food.
projected, yeah.
Oh, we've got to get that under control.
Yeah, I'm hoping she can come up with some, I mean, she sent out some surveys. She's tried to, ask the students what they liked, what they didn't like, what they would like more of.
You have to be so careful with what the state.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
No
So
salt,
that's gonna change. Like
Yeah,
you just said, Dixie.
no salt.
I think
Yeah,
with
what you just
Chick-fil-A,
said, that's gonna change. I think it is.
some of the
Chick-fil-A
answers
things
have been-
can't. Oh, they want Chick-fil-A.
they want-
Yeah.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A was a general.
That was the top winner. Don't blame them.
It's like, I need to be more specific.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you might want to give them options. This, what would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hardin County
I would
serves
think
Chick-fil-A.
so, for a whole lot of it. Yeah.
But she has been going, she has gone out into some of the schools
Highway,
and actually, talked with the folks, with the students, with the administrators, so hopefully maybe she can at least spark some more interest or some more, I don't know.
We eliminated a half of a position there too,
To the Capitol, to the McDonald's.
which I know isn't a ton, but it'll help lower that cost
I'm sure they can.
since our employees are in that too.
They had good support, like, just like,
You don't know the dollar amount of the employees in the food service, do you?
I have it back here.
You don't
Yeah,
have to get
'cause
to it right now.
that's not in that figure.
It is.
It is.
It is,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, they're included in
Yeah,
that.
that's why I noted it back here, so you know that you still have to
Under.
consider that, but.
Right.
It's not all
under half
food.
off.
Yeah.
So I broke down the child nutrition. We usually look at the revenues to date, so I used the last full month completed, which would have been April. Then the expenditures to that point, encumbrances, which the same, there's probably some things encumbered there that will close, that will decrease. The claim reimbursement that has been submitted for April, and then the estimate for May to get a difference of $750,000 for this current year. Now, of that, $937,077.30 is the just cook salaries. With the fixed costs, the retirement, social security, Medicare, the workers' comp, all that calculated into it, and their health insurance,
Mhm.
any of that as well. So, ultimately, it's not in a hole,
Yeah,
it's just not doing as well as it used to do.
well, the cost of food have gone up and the number of people eating has gone down, plus so many of our staff don't eat anymore. So, I mean, it used to be that they'd all eat.
Mhm.
What
Pretty
is an
much.
adult, what is an adult meal now?
Or something more.
$4.75.
I think.
I think it's
There
475.
are a lot of adults that have it.
there were some.
I was gonna say that changed when we started making them pay ahead instead of sending them a bill. Yeah, they stopped charging because it was easy to go through if you didn't have cash and just buy a meal and think I'll pay for it later. And the majority of them did. We had a few that didn't, but the majority of them paid.
How is that monitored?
They would, what part?
Adults having meals without pay?
All of the schools and administration know that there are a specific number of people, not a specific number, that can eat, that get to eat for free, and that's based upon their giving up a portion of their day to do something involved with the lunch program. So they don't get a lunch, for example, because they needed somebody to cover a lunch duty that wasn't free at that time. So that person gets a free meal. And we went through and basically made a set of criteria on what that looked like and
And then
knocked it way
there are
down.
Adults that
Yeah.
are actually, we can bill, or we can get the reimbursement for there.
And we hit that a little harder this year and probably will revisit that now that Mrs. Thorne is here. We'll start out with a set of criteria that we make more public next year. We just worked with the principals on it this past year to try to narrow it
So
down.
if you have lunch duty, you got free meals.
Not automatically, no. If you have lunch duty and then you get
You should.
And then you get your own lunch. It's only if you're giving up your lunch to lunch duty that you, yeah. Because we're required to give them a duty-free lunch. So it was only if it was a trade-off.
Lunch duty is not fun.
We've had it for years.
I did too. And
Multiple, I think, there for a while.
it's not fun.
Anyone have any not tab 4?
Yeah, going backwards, sorry.
And this is the breakdown of step 7. So for step 7A, Hardee County received $648,428. And on the next page, you can see where we allocated that. 50% is the max that can be used towards personnel out of those funds. So we usually hit right close to that, and that personnel has to be used for personnel of, like we use it for some of our EL teachers and foreign language, Spanish teachers. We pay for a small portion of their salaries out of there. We budgeted $10,000 to contests. We budgeted $98,428 to instructional supplies, $5,000 to middle school CPE supplies and travel, and $215,000 to textbooks.
What textbooks up for that?
Pre-K and social studies
Pre-K,
and social studies.
okay. And pre-K social stuff.
Give it time.
Yeah.
How much are textbooks actually being used in classrooms now with everyone having a device?
Well, most of this is not physical textbooks, it's just for the online.
Oh, it is
And I
actually,
believe we bought one set per grade level, one textbook.
For the most part, yeah, I think it varied a little bit based upon grade level and what they had, but we tried to eliminate the actual purchase of tons of books as long as we could get access to them through our iPads, because then the kids have it.
well,
You take it
that's
home.
what I was thinking, why have all the
Yeah.
textbooks around if the kids can?
Yeah, some of the AP courses I think required more of or higher level courses. We invested in the books, but for the most part, if we could get them and get everything we needed on the iPad, we purchased that instead.
And I'm assuming that kids are much better at learning from an iPad than I ever could be. I have to have.
Depends on the kid, but
Printed page in front of me,
yeah.
and I'm sure
What
that's an age
if
thing.
a parent came in or kids sit all in the books? Did you have to?
We have we have enough that we could let them use one if that was
We got one for you.
or if they needed to take one home and didn't have internet.
I'm saying, but you got one.
Yeah, I want a book in my hand,
We're
but it's old.
old school, these young,
We're old study buddies, and I acknowledge that.
young studies and get like
Yeah, I know all my CE was online for pharmacy and stuff, and at least you had the opportunity to print it down. So I would print it down because I would always do better if I could print it down, look at it flat and study it rather than on the screen. And then just take your test on the screen.
The next page behind there just breaks down the revenue into those different project codes. And then behind that are the expenditures. Any questions about step 7?
What is PAYGO?
That's that OPEB, RHBT portion.
Daggone, they love to,
Call
disguise it
everything by
with different
different
names, don't they?
Yeah,
Confuse you as much as they can.
It's like they're trying to hide something.
that's what drives me crazy about all the PD that we do. They
Yeah.
call it either by the company name,
Acronym.
person's name, and I'm constantly trying to figure out what they're
Which
talking
one
about.
is that?
Depends on the break.
What everyone's talking about.
Do you want to take a restroom break real quick?
Yeah. I'm ADHD, I've been medicated years ago.
All righty, we'll take a quick break.
Or tied in my chair one time and did that to people.
Let's take a break. We can take a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we get to tab 5. Okay. All right.
If you all haven't had dessert, that chocolate stuff, I didn't need any cake, but that chocolate stuff,
They're not here.
it's
Really?
Well, hold on, I could be wrong, but I don't think I could get them to play earlier. That's what I was having trouble with.
I'm gonna use this.
See this? I couldn't get them. See how it says
Break that
H? See, it puts it over here. See how it has the H? There we go. Now you're ready.
Okay, tab 5 is the child nutrition, which we went over just briefly a few minutes ago, but, the revenues are what have been collected through the end of April, since that's the last complete month. And that shows on the first page behind there. The expenses are what was paid through the end of April, which gives us the negative 491,000. The encumbrances are what are shown as encumbered as of April 30th as well. These are on the second page. You can see those numbers on the second page behind there. Then the April claim reimbursement is what was submitted, the 197,262. That's on the fourth page behind there if you want to see that. And then May's was just estimated at approximately 150,000. Of course, you'll have the seniors out earlier, school ending at the end. If those encumbrances are true, which some of them I would think would be a little overstated, we usually buffer that sum, we would need to cover child nutrition $750,000. And of that amount, as we said before, 937,000 are cook salaries and fixed costs.
So if you look at their true negative, it's not that bad with the costs. I hope that Emily, if they could just make a few more homemade things, you know? Like if they make homemade rolls or shoot, even those ones that you roll out and let them raise.
And I think some do, yeah. We just need to refine some of our meals in general, I think will help.
Yeah, I mean, because they'll go just to get that one thing.
Yeah, yeah. If it's stuff they like, they'll eat it continuously.
Yeah.
That's how kids are.
And then there's Emily's budget there towards the end. Here's the projected increase in reimbursement. The lunches are going up 10 cents, sorry, and breakfast is going up 11 cents on the amount that we get reimbursed. So there, the actual 2025, and then what is projected. What is projected, I guess that could potentially change, but at least as of now, what's projected is 10 cents more on each lunch and 11 cents more on each breakfast. And then the last page just shows you the trend in 15, 16, 17, 18, that kind of started getting a little bit better after 20. Now, of course, for 21 and 22, we did receive a higher reimbursement rate.
Yeah.
We
It was
did.
like 20 cents more or something like that. But they also seemed to eat a lot more during that period. And I don't know if it's because we were taking it down, breakfast, you were then taking it down the hallways, you were giving it to them in the classroom, I don't know if,
Everybody was getting a tray.
yeah, everybody was getting a tray because of that or what, but our numbers served during that period also went up, and then because the rate also went up, it was a good combination there.
What determines the rate at which we get reimbursed?
It's determined by that, I would assume federal, I don't think it's state. I would assume it's federal.
Well,
And
it has to be since it's coming from federal funds, so.
And then you can see that, last year for FY '24, we ended up covering child, well, I say covering, but where it was at the end of the year, $477,000, which was up. So to me, that was so from the prior year, it increased what we needed to cover by $220,000. So to me, that was a big jump, which was more of what I was looking at as opposed to the total amount was just the amount that it increased. That's almost 50%. That's almost 150% of what it was the prior year.
Milk and bread practically, and meat.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Bless
Excuse me. Thanks.
So the cook salaries he's paying out of the child nutrition, are they counted in the formula also?
They're counted in the formula.
Okay.
It's just, yeah. So we would get the average. Then we're also a little over. It would be hard to transfer an amount over into Fund 61 for that.
But we are getting reimbursed.
With what's within formula.
They go as
Now, of course,
service.
whatever we're over formula, we
Right.
don't. Now, whether we would consider them to be aides or cooks or what, like you would have to
Right.
do a percentage.
So we are getting paid though for them.
Yes, yes. Anyone else have any questions, other questions about that?
Well, I just guess to clarify, and I think probably the point Melvin's trying to prove is the money's coming in a different place. So it's not showing up when we're getting paid for it. We're not sliding it into
No,
child
no,
nutrition
so-
to show that it's covering it there. So it looks
it'll be
worse
this-
here, but the money's coming in someplace else. It's not looking like it's offsetting, but it essentially is. So when we're moving it over, when we have to move funds over to cover that child nutrition, that's part of what we in theory are covering.
Are covered.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure everybody got that point. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I was just giving everybody a minute.
So why don't we move those salaries?
I guess because 6 one way, half a dozen the
Well,
other.
Fund 61 cannot
Move
get you
money.
a profit. Because we're actually receiving, based on the meals that are being eaten, we're actually getting funds for that. So we can't turn it into an earning account. Like, it's not
Okay,
a-
so that's why.
Right, so what we do is just transfer the funds over at the end of the
If
year to make
there's
sure that
A
it wipes
shortfall.
zero, yeah. The same way with the 1 year that we did have a profit, that year that it shows negative on that, we actually had a profit in there, which we can't show. So that year, we actually got to charge indirect cost, an administrative fee to that to move the funds over. Because you can't let it, show as a profit.
Okay,
So if we did move it over, then we would just probably be moving back and forth at the end of the year.
okay.
So we just let it go, see what happens at the end of the year, and then move the funds over.
And so
It's really
the,
just to our benefit, the more we can increase the participation in
Mhm.
the child nutrition program.
so the breakfast,
Mhm.
so can they still, get it in their room? Do they still, or was that just during COVID? Or
No,
was it
the schools
chaos?
have the options to they can eat in the cafeteria, or they have an option to take a bagged breakfast. And so that we still have that as a requirement. And that's part of the child nutrition program, is you have to offer those innovative breakfast after first options for kids.
For
Well-
all K through 12?
I think so. I think everybody has that option.
They
What
all do.
What used to happen though was we were literally pushing a cart full of breakfasts for everybody down to the rooms and giving everybody the breakfast. As to where now it's more of a you take one if you want one, and not every kid wants one. And not every kid wanted one before, but it wasn't costing them anything. We gave them one, we billed for it. Maybe they ate some of it, maybe they didn't, which is the model that I like. Personally, I would rather you just gave everybody the breakfast and they would eat 1 or 2 pieces out of it. Now, the issue with that was, and you guys heard a lot about this, was there was a ton of waste. And so we heard about
Yeah.
but it was
letting
waste that we
the
were-
milk sit out.
yeah, but it was waste we were getting reimbursed for,
All the sweet stuff that they were being given to, rather
Yeah.
than. whole
which they
food.
eat more of
And I can
sometimes
see
too.
how kids having boys and how they're constantly like like focused on getting somewhere. I could see them running down the hall to their classroom setting and then being like,
Oh, I didn't get
oh, I
breakfast.
didn't get breakfast. But I'm sure, they probably told the person no as they were like running past them
Yeah.
to get to their classroom and go down there and then being, like, sometimes I feel like kids probably do that.
Yeah.
They may have eaten if it was set in front of them, but
Well, and if you're walking
And
past it, you don't have the option of opening up the bag, taking
Saying
everything
okay.
out, saying, oh, I'll drink the juice and eat the donut, and throwing the rest of it away. It's either all or you either choose to take it or you choose not to. And most of them are just like, nah, I eat at home. And I've stood in the hallways and watched some of that happen too. I think when we had it in the rooms ready to go, you had kids eating some of it. Now, you threw a lot of it away, but we were reimbursed for it. So you have to decide do you have a moral dilemma with throwing away the food that the kids aren't eating and wasting a lot of food? Or would you rather do that and get reimbursed for it and have a higher amount coming in on the reimbursement end? So those are the things you have to think about.
What does Emily feel about that?
I'm not sure. I haven't talked to her about
Do
that.
they even go down the hallway then? Do they even go down the
Different schools
hallway?
do it different
Like, I was
ways.
just thinking, like, you wouldn't necessarily, but just giving them that second option to take it
Mhm.
if they wanted it at that point, but not.
Some have
I know
stations
we
at
can't
different
make them
places.
anyway, but instead
Yeah.
of just saying everyone get one.
Yeah.
If they have that option to have a second opportunity to have one,
Mhm.
where once they've sat down, they might.
I think they all have the option to get one after. You can either eat in the cafeteria or get the to-go, but it looks different at different schools. Like some have stations all the way throughout the school. Some have it as you leave the cafeteria. It's just different. Some you walk through and pick it up and take it versus getting the breakfast you're going to eat there. It's just different.
But doesn't it makes a difference when your bus comes in.
Everybody has to have access to the second chance breakfast. It's a requirement that no matter when you get there, you can either eat the hot or eat the second chance. Now, obviously, if you get there an hour late, breakfast is over. But as long as it's during arrival time, everybody has to have the same options. That's what the policy says anyway.
But
Has anybody ever brought the cafeteria managers together so that they can discuss what works and what doesn't work in each of their schools?
Yeah, that's happened before.
Didn't work?
I mean, they all have thoughts about it. And
But no consensus about this is how we should do it.
well, I think that Emily will be able to maybe work with them and get some ideas. It's different from what you do in K-2 schools versus a high school versus the middle. I mean, they're all just so different
True.
in what kids are looking for and need. And
Well, and what they're capable of, pre-K and high school.
the cooks will tell you that they're pretty slammed on time too. So for them, packaging a whole bunch of to-go breakfast takes a lot of time.
Right.
And, we've eliminated the number of cooks we've had and tried to cut back on that end too. So I know that's something we consistently hear is taking people away from us, but you want us to do more. And that's a common theme. But I think Emily will work on it. I think we'll see some progress this year. I really do.
Tab 6. This is personnel, and coaching. We did the certified list, as you guys know, back in October, and we also looked over it at our fall, retreat. So this is just kind of an updated, the page behind this, I have what you guys saw in that retreat, in that budget retreat. This sheet is from the notebook that we had then, which gives you the total where we had, we were under 3.88. Now, when all that was said and done, we were over 10.22, but I started with 3.88. So accounting for the 3.88 that we were over or under, essentially we were under because we got the funding was included in that for the third grade aides that we had yet to hire. Since then, if you start with the 3.88, we have hired autism mentor, a special education multi-cat, secretary / clerk. It was a secretary, now it's a clerk, so that's on there that way. The third grade aides, 5 will be hired at MES, 2 will be hired at East Hardy Elementary School. We added a 4th grade teacher, and then we still have posted but have not hired yet the virtual special education position. Positions that will be eliminated or have been for this upcoming year. There was a math and science position combined at East Hardy High School, a Spanish library position also combined at East Hardy High School, and then at Norfolk High School, English, social studies, math, and half of a cook position. So those come off of there, and then there are 4 positions, which we had before that was not, they're listed on the certified list as 4, category 4. Due to coding or the specific position, they're not covered on the certified list, so they don't count, so they get added back in.
So final over is the 6.62.
6.62 over currently.
How many positions do we pay that aren't in formula?
Those would be the, 2 of those positions are the OT, occupational therapy. They're just, they don't have it.
Okay.
But we're saving, in
Right,
theory,
right,
those positions
right.
were in exchange for what we were paying for the outsourcing.
But no other employee you're saying every other employee's in formula, or?
You mean as far as being covered, could be covered by the formula? Like for instance, my salary,
Right.
it states that I have to be paid out of
Right.
local funds.
Yeah, that's what I'm
You're
saying.
required to have
Right,
me.
how many of those people are we
There's
paying?
me, there's half of, your attendance
This
director
person.
also has to be paid out of that, which is half, based on our enrollment.
Right.
We have to have half of that position, and then a portion of transportation. So those are the ones that you cannot pay
Right.
anywhere else. Then there's 4 that are on that list that just do not have a code yet. I mean, I don't know if the state will ever, those positions are recognized, but yet not in their funding, which are the OT.
Now, that number isn't included in the 6, though.
No, that they are, those are the 4.
Okay,
Those 4 that are added back. It's the
Okay.
2
Oh,
OT
okay.
positions.
Right.
This psychometrist,
Okay.
and then, Tony's position, but I'm not sure. that's
Technology
because-
specialist.
So those are 4 that do not fit.
Technology tech, OT, and who else?
Psychometrist.
The psychometrist.
The tester.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And who's the 4th?
2 OTs.
2 OTs. We have 2 of those hired.
2 OTs.
Two
OTs.
okay.
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
the other salaries out of general fund is yours, half of
Jody,
attendance.
and, I think it's 75%. However, the transportation piece, so I think his Josh 75, it might be 75.
75, 25 maybe.
Yeah, so his
Portion of
75%
his.
or whatever percentage transportation is paid out of local funds.
And the people we pay Epic that comes out of general fund.
I'm sorry. what did you say?
Epic, yeah, they're not
Yeah.
included in the,
Yeah, because they're not
Count.
true, they're
contracted
contracted
services.
services, they're not salaries.
So that's local funds. Now, how about the people that have extended day contracts? We have to pay all that out of local funds, right? All our coaches and,
Yeah.
extended day contracts and,
Unless they're being paid out of a federal program or something like that, or a specific grant.
For instance,
Otherwise,
your head
yes.
teachers and all those are paid out of general funds.
Well, like, there's a couple of Title I teachers that are paid out of federal funds. There's
yeah.
a couple, most in special ed are usually the aides. There's one teacher
Yell.
in the,
No.
pre-K,
Out of,
IDEA.
step 7.
But if they are in those, then they're not counted in the certified list anyway.
Our
So-
CIS folks, I guess, are
Our
paid with
CIS have
CIS
state
funding
grants,
so far.
Right.
There's certain ones that have, some of our interventionists are paid out of that Stronger Connections grant that we have. So it just depends on which, but yeah, if
where you can put.
anyone's on the certified list that has an extended contract, then that piece becomes paid back because we're essentially getting the average salary of our people on the certified list.
But not their extended
Not
day,
extended
just
day.
their 180 day,
200.
200 day contract,
Yeah.
okay. So have you ever figured out what that overage is that goes to? It would be interesting,
Look at that.
it would be interesting to know Because that's a figure that honestly, we do need to know if we're gonna do an excess levy at some point.
It's probably on that, the central office thing has it broken down as to what that amount is that's on top of, right? Isn't it already the way Peggy has it categorized, you can kind of tell what's paid additionally?
You can tell what's paid additionally, but you wouldn't know what was covered under what we receive as state aid. Is that what you're talking about? Like what we actually receive as the state aid for?
And that
those
amount's the
positions
same for
versus
everybody, right? Right, the average amount that you're
I
getting
think
per
you were
person's
asking
the
how, the
same,
overage, how much we're paying overage above and beyond out of the general fund for all those people.
beyond the 200 days we're getting reimbursed for.
Mhm.
Just beyond the 200, okay. All right, I thought she meant based on what we were receiving as funding.
I think she's
The
talking about
difference.
the
You're just
additional
saying what is
days.
above.
Yeah, I don't think that's
Okay.
a real problem because it used
The
to
same as
be,
every, yeah,
because we have so many new employees now.
yeah, we
Yeah, so
younger
we could
folks.
potentially be getting more.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
on your
Yeah.
new employees than what you.
That's why I thought you were asking that. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, that's
so you
okay,
just
I
wanna
just
know
mean
what-
your overages.
You just want to know what we pay above and beyond
Yeah,
200 days.
plus your stipend, your stipends that we're paying and stuff that we know we're not getting.
Standard stipends, I think she's still talking salary
Not the
awarded, not the
additional during
random
year
here and
stipends.
there's, yeah.
Okay.
Because, and then the other thing would, because other than the central office folks, it would just be, I'm trying to think of who's above, you have your secretaries, custody, because I did that for you one time, remember, I gave you that spreadsheet that had
No,
the
I'm
Yeah.
talking
Who was over
coaches
200.
and all that sort of stuff.
So
Because we're
coaching
not-
salary she has.
Yeah, we're not reimbursed for.
Coaches, yeah, you have that here already.
Yeah. So you want any extracurricular that's not paid through a grant or something like that?
We just put anybody over 280 employees.
Like even the folks that get like a extracurricular contract for doing something else, do you want those as well?
Well, those extracurricular contracts, we don't get anything from.
You mean from reimbursement wise,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I think all of that, we need to know
Okay.
what our numbers are, because shoot, you could have $1 million in that and not even, I mean, that's probably not so, but, you know, we just need to look at it and see. It's not like we're gonna do anything about it, because the people already have it, but, you know,
So,
could
yeah,
be something that we would.
the big one's going to be your coaches. That, and I think she already has that one for you. The other stuff's minuscule compared to that, but the coaching salaries is going to be the big one, I think, unless I'm missing
You know, the
something.
thing about coaches, you consider your time.
Oh,
Your
they don't get paid anything,
Your average
really.
rate's nothing.
I mean, it's
Really,
like being
right.
a volunteer, it kind of would pay for
Your
your
own
gas
time.
maybe.
Yeah,
I your money or something. for the
yeah, no, they
program.
don't get much. I was looking at this right here.
Not like Texas, not like Texas.
And then I don't know if you guys care to see, but when we did the fall budget retreat, remember I told you these were projected numbers because the actual comps hadn't come out yet. This that was in your fall budget retreat, if you look behind it, those 3 pages behind there, the number employed in excess of limits for Hardin County there under professional educators, you can see 3.71. I had 3.72, so that was close to being on point there. For service personnel was 4.74. 4.74 is what we had. And then the PSSP was 2.86, and I had 2.86. So,
Pretty good, aren't you, girl?
well, sometimes. Not
She's
always.
she's very good. She's
Not
very
always,
good.
but I just wanted you to see that those numbers were actually
Sure,
when the.
I mean, that's good, that's what we
I
want
always
to
hate
hear.
that, I always hate when those comps don't come out until after we have that budget retreat in the fall, but anyway,
Her math was mathing that
those
day.
showed,
Was
those
it-
showed that that was there.
Used to be, you'd be on 3 or 4 people at least on both
I
things.
don't wanna be off. I don't wanna be off. And then the next page just shows you the enrollment as of October that we had talked about was the 2,184. But just as a heads up, and as hard as Sheena and everyone did work to get to the 6 people over. No idea what enrollment will look like next year. I don't know about the pre-K coming into kindergarten or the kids coming into pre-K. But just looking at this, that big class did graduate, I guess. We're after graduation at this point. So just looking at the difference between 12th grade and kindergarten is a 40 student difference. If you do the professional factor for 40 students, the service factor for 40 students, and the PSSP factor for 40 students, it comes to 5.33 positions.
We have to recruit a lot of great counties.
Drive it.
I'll make them, I'll drop the lead.
Well, if we could get some of the homeschooled, because I was talking with a fella, forget where it was. Oh, I know, it was at Jim Davis's visitation. And he lives up South Fork by someone that has 6 kids, and they're all homeschooled. I told you about the family out here.
And Lily
And-
has 8 or 9 and lives over in that. Well, Jason Hepburn, and they're all homeschooled.
Yeah, if we could get some of these homeschooled people in, it would be
A
wonderful.
lot of them are like him, he uses his kids as the chicken, his poultry business. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure he does. So the older, I've never seen him, honestly. I get chicken when you're like that, but I've never seen the kids. I know he had 2 that just got married, so they're pretty strong out.
But if we could get some of the homeschooled that,
Been-
we're worried about disease and stuff like that, if they would come back.
And
that would
still,
be
I
good.
mean,
There's a lot of that.
even at that, we're 11 over, which is much better
Oh, yeah.
than the 23. We were over 22. And not that we want, I mean,
What would you think?
we still want to keep it down. But hopefully,
Oh, we have to, because our excess is just, every year,
rate is decreasing.
it's going down, a couple hundred, 250,000 every
But
year.
Right.
we did check enrollment. We were up
20,
15 or 20 students.
I was gonna say 20, yeah, something like that.
From October to now. So, that's a positive too.
So
against
is
40
that
loss.
in the 2,100?
No, it is
Okay.
not. So from that September or October 1st date, it was a couple months ago we checked, wasn't it, Sheena?
Mm-hmm.
Just to see if it had changed any,
Uh-huh.
and we were actually up. It was like 15 or 20.
It was somewhere in that range.
But at
Yeah.
least we were up and up.
And I know our
Yeah.
enrollment in pre-K has been really, really good at Moorfield. And then kindergarten, we'll figure out, that'll happen over the summer to see if we can build that up. But
Yeah, definitely. As soon as we can get back.
we'll experience a
Um,
hit from that big class graduating, I think, one way or the other.
Yeah.
We'll see.
let's see, the next one I believe starts the coaching salaries. Norfolk High School is the first one, followed by East Hardy High School, then Norfolk Middle, and then East Hardy Middle. I also had, I did not put in there, I had to hand out, some of the other, well, here, this top one is just kind of a breakdown of what our positions are. Okay. Forgot I copied it all together. And I think you guys were interested in seeing some of the other counties, so, also attached there is our 2 closest for bordering counties. Just to kind of see what, and I think it was the general consensus when I talked to everyone that they're looking at.
What is our
Other ways
policy
to do
on
it.
new sports? Because I can remember in the old days, that's what I need to refer to them as. Before a new sport could start,
Mm-hmm.
it had to be approved by us.
It does.
And we had to make sure that, we weren't violating any Title IX things, that there was opportunity for the women as well.
Uh-huh.
Because we really had to fight for a girls' volleyball team.
Yeah, no, we follow the same process. They have to send a proposal to me if it's a new sport. they have to tell you how they're going to pay for the coach and the equipment, where they're going to practice. If you remember soccer, I guess being the most recent one, they had to include all of that in the proposal. It came to you guys, and then you had to approve it as a board, and you did that for soccer. Mrs.
Okay,
Campbell came to that meeting. The only one that we didn't follow that procedure for was archery, and that was because that was actually a board requested position instead of a school requested position. So if you remember, it was during COVID when we had some Easter funds, we had talked about that. And that was one of the things that we had a club, and then they were, I think, had maybe reached out to Miss Rose, or they were wanting an archery program. And so since I didn't make the school responsible for that up front because it wasn't their idea, it was our idea. So I
okay.
didn't make them pay for
Okay,
the,
because I didn't think that we voted on, I knew we voted on the soccer.
yes,
But
archery.
I didn't think we had voted on the archery.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
the difference. That's correct.
Are there any other sports that we think that they're gonna
Not that I know of.
be wanting?
Not that I'm aware of.
Won't have the drink.
I mean, I think the sports are wonderful because it helps the kids. It keeps them active, gets them in shape, and I think it, because of the grade requirement, they seem to.
Yeah.
So now they're just telling you what their total contract is. So do they not, at Petersburg, do they not have a percent?
They just have a flat rate.
Hamilton as well.
I like that better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure where we got the percentages and why they're different, like what determined if it's 2% versus 3% versus 4%.
What I was told when I started was it was major sport versus minor sports,
And the threes in the middle.
and the threes in the middle. Yeah, I thought it had to do with Steve Williams, but I believe it was Vita and Peggy said Charlie Landis helped to develop that original scale.
I also I did not realize this until looking at this. They're paid based on the salary they would have here, but I'm not sure why we incorporate days into that. So like you'll see some of them are on the 240 and some, like to me, if you're just doing on what your salary, it would just be a straight.
Be your base salary.
Right. So I'm not sure when that came about or why that's done.
But we're not doing that.
We are doing that.
We're
doing
based
it
on
on days. So
what their
some of it
actual
in our
salary is.
system
Is
As a
it 240,
240
then they
or
get paid
260
for
or-
40.
Right, they get paid based on their salaries for those days.
their
opposed-
percentage is figured on their total salary. So a 240-day salary, that 3% is based on that, where if it was a 200-day employee that was a teacher, the 3% is based on that, instead of everybody based on a 200-day base salary. And that's the way it's always been, and we don't know
None of it's enough, so.
why.
I
Just
agree.
inconsistent.
I wouldn't be changing it.
I just think it's
Yeah.
unfair for,
Oh, you'd lose every coach you have.
I think it's
Maybe
unfair
not.
for the ones that, it's just,
Are getting more.
right.
Getting
More
more
than what
because
they're
they're
getting,
working a
like,
longer contract.
yeah, I
When
mean,
you're
that
not putting
really
that
should have-
extra time.
'Cause it's not
into the
connected.
sport.
Right, because it's not really connected, yeah. Like, to me, this should be a separate,
Most of these coaches are doing it because they either love it or they have children involved.
Yeah,
And
that's
they
true.
still love it. And
Or
we're just lucky to have them,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm telling you.
especially Hamilton, really. Their salaries really stink.
They're lower, yeah. They were.
100,000 for a football coach.
Yep.
Be curious to see what some of the counties that have levies pay, like Mon, could you get Mon and Berkeley?
sure,
I like
I mean, I
to
can ask, at least ask
see- Yeah,
one.
I like to see that.
Yeah, we talk about quadruple.
Well, I'm sure, well, they have levies too. And I'm sure Bond would be, I would think Bond County would be more than Berkeley, wouldn't you? I'd say it should be one of the higher, maybe the highest in the state, I would think. Morgantown High University, but play to tell, it's in Montague County. And just out of curiosity, I'd like to see theirs. Berkeley's or Jefferson, either one. And maybe one of the southern counties, just to see if they took that much, like maybe Mingo's, the state took them over too, didn't they? Yeah, about
Mingo?
a year ago.
5 or 6 now, they have.
Yeah, Mingo, this is the second time they've said, politics, that's what that was the reasoning for taking over. And they took over Tyler because the board members were going outside the school and having conversations. It was because of the board members and Tyler, because Tyler always has real good test scores, don't they? Dr. Van Meter?
They do.
Yeah, it wasn't their test scores, it was the board members.
They put their, the superintendent that had been voted out, they put him back in as the state did. The state, when they took over, they put because the board members voted to, 3 board members voted to remove the superintendent that everybody liked that was doing a good job. And so that was part of the problem. So when the state took over, they put that superintendent back in charge, which I thought was really an interesting.
So it sounds like the board's the problem.
Yeah, the board was the problem in Tyler, from what I understand. The 3 particular, yeah.
Who did they put in Nicholas?
George, Terry George. You know Terry probably.
Yeah, that was the county that the superintendent hired.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 3 more counties now that didn't take it over?
There are 5 or 6.
5 or 6.
Really?
Yeah. Not us.
But they're doing it in a different
The
way
only Eastern Panhandle
than what
counties
they've
that have been taken
done,
over, yeah.
because I was reading that the state doesn't have the personnel to be able to manage the ones, and that they're,
Because of the-
Because there's so many of them.
it's like a,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's probationary or what, but there was an article out about it. that-
Yeah, it's been pretty.
And,
nuts.
he's never- Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was very good. Very good.
Anyone have any more questions about that?
I know it isn't much for what you get paid, but when you run that total and all that we're taking.
Yeah,
It's a large chunk.
200,000?
Exactly.
And I wasn't saying anything negative about them getting those extra days. I just think that's unfair. That's a non-consistent. That job shouldn't have anything to do with that job, I guess, is what I was just saying. It seems like it's on,
Yeah, it
it's
should
the
be on there,
inconsistent part. of
yeah,
the
200
process.
days, but.
The formula should be the same regardless of who the person is. There shouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah.
And of course, those are without any of the fixed costs. So you would have to add fixed costs and all of that. Yep. And retirement and everything too.
Well, they've made officials because they're wanting them all the time too. They don't have near enough officials anymore. You could pay, especially in basketball.
Looks like a fun job. After that is the administrative salaries. We usually always put those in there. I know we just put them in the fall, but I put them there in case you wanted to see those as well.
Anyone have any questions about those? Or that section?
Heck, this one on the O2, that one certified assistant is paid this 5,000 less than the,
She has a lot of experience. I think that's what gets her.
23 years.
And the other one was just out of
Which
school when
is
we
good.
hired her. Yeah, she's very good.
That's pretty cheap, and
It's way better than paying the contracted services that we were paying for those.
Oh
Oof,
my.
those were painful.
Well, and for
Painful.
them, with the benefits and stuff that they get, it's.
And the leave and
Right.
summers. Yeah, it's much better for them.
he coached them. According to the county, I'm sure. Madison probably. Great.
Not very well.
That's what we were for, you know. That's even before they were in Madison.
How many people did we have this year that were taking classes at Eastern? Did we have anyone to graduate?
We had 2 to graduate. Yeah, we actually just got their names passed this past week. And we got to put them on the June 9th to recognize. We had 2 graduates, and then they sent the link out to see if we had anyone else that wanted to do the next cohort, but 2 more. We've had quite a few come through there
That's
total.
good.
It's been really good for what it's cost us, which
It's
isn't
good for
much.
them
It's
and
been a
good for
really,
us.
it's been a really positive thing for our employees.
No one has anything else in that section. Tab 7 is a look at the debt balance, field lights, remaining 2 payments, for a total between the 2 payments of $457,000, $458,000 almost. And then the Apple devices, the most recent, upgrade for the Apple devices, we have 3 remaining payments totaling combined $884,000. The second page shows the amount for the field lights. And then the third page shows the amount for the Apple devices. Now, we made the first payment for the Apple devices, just we used a large portion of our tech fund or tech allowance. And then also what was some that was left over from the Tools for Schools funds that we had received the prior year. Going forward, she received the buyback, I think was like 240 some thousand. I can't remember exactly, around 240,000, I think, was the buyback that we're holding right now, along with, there was like 30,000 maybe. And people either lost chargers or damaged devices, or them buying into the insurance program for the devices. So that will make the first or the next payment coming up. And she has carved amounts out of her upcoming technology allowances as well as Tools for Schools for the next 2 years, because we've maxed out our E-rate upgrades and stuff that we can do for a 2-year period, which we usually use that Tools for Schools up front and get reimbursed. But anyway, the next 2 years, those funding allocations will be used to pay off those devices.
How about when we have new students, like we're up, you said, 40 some people this year? Did we have to buy 40 new computers, or did we have some extra?
At one point, I think we did have to order additional computers. We usually keep 15 on
Yeah.
hand so that if something's damaged and we have to swap them off while we send one off to get fixed, we have kind of a flowing batch that we
Sure.
have, but.
Because they can't be without them if they're
Right.
the textbooks and everything.
Right, but no, we've never had an issue. We always kind of have an idea enough ahead of time where we keep some on hand. When we get low, he can get them in very
And
quickly, so.
How much are they? How much do we pay?
Per device,
Yeah, if we have to call and say, gee, we need 10.
is it 1,300 a piece? Something like
Well,
that?
We went to the.
Oh, that's right, we went to the
Yes,
iPads.
the iPads.
So
Um,
8
it
something?
was less. I just don't remember.
Not, yeah, under 1,000. Yeah, under 1,000, because we switched all over to that, so that significantly cut the amount.
I think we ordered
we
10 during,
cost.
I remember 10, I think at one point we did order. during
We
the
ordered a
year, but I
batch,
think we
yeah.
used- It came out of the tech allocation.
They're not bad.
The textbook or the
True.
tech?
Technology, sorry, technology allocation that we get from the states at 7.
Okay, and that's fine to use that. I mean, it is technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole budget usually revolves around pays a portion of their salaries and then, software programs that we need, like all of that. It kind of accounts for many pieces of that.
Okay.
And that was just, these two pages here just showed you the 268,000 that is sitting in that account. That she has in the 76,000. The setting it towards the school, so it'll go towards it. Pulling up that payment. And then the next piece on this one is the bus allowance lease option. We looked at it last year. I just gave you guys the amounts and the information. I was just revisiting it this year because the rates have gone down. So if there's anything that you think this money might be used for or might be done, might want to do, this is a way, or just to give us more of a cushion there, is a way to still be able to get the buses that increases our bus allowance. Or if you just want to get an extra bus. I took what was in there last year at this time out and just whited it out and rewrote it because it's
You
really.
more electric bus, excuse me, more electric bus. Remember, we're supposed to take a ride, didn't
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't think we're gonna get.
They're already closing up the factory, Charles.
Are you
Well,
sure?
the buses kept catching on fire, didn't they?
Yeah, I think we'll be okay without it.
Well, I look forward to that.
I just wanted our
Well, at
bus
least
allowance to
it's-
go
I
up.
know.
At least it's not here and sitting out there and catching every bus we own on fire.
I think this,
So to,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
Mm-mm.
I was just saying,
Yeah.
to me, this makes sense, but I understand the pull back and forth on it, but okay, we did the 3 bus last year, this is the 2, I only did it doing 2 buses, so assume we wanted 2 buses, Josh gave me the amount for the 2 buses total would be around 313,000. So with the current rates, which have decreased, they were 7.5 last year when we did this, I believe. It's now down to 6.15. With that rate, if we did a 5-year and a 4-year, the monthly payment for a 5-year would be $6,285.58. Monthly payment for a 4-year would be $7,600. The term of 60 months versus 48 months, the total payments for whether it's a 5-year or a 4-year, and then the principal cost. So then the difference, what it cost us to borrow that money was $64,000 roughly if we did a 5-year plan. If you come down below to what we get reimbursed or what our bus allowance will be, and this is based on replacement value of 113. I didn't have the new papers. I tried to get a hold of them to get it, but they hadn't responded as of yet. So in 2023, based on what it was, our bus allowance over those 5, like if we did a 5-year loan, our bus allowance over that 5-year period would be $94,410. So even if we borrowed the money to purchase the buses, we would still come out $30,000 ahead.
You're making money by leasing the money to buy the buses.
Remember what was the name of the company?
And that's assuming
charge.
the 113. So when I did this for you guys back in the fall, the average cost of buses from 2024, which is what this upcoming year would be based on, was 142,000. So if that was the case, you actually would have made 54,000. Now, I'm not saying you're still spending money to make that, but you want to increase your bus fleet. So, you know, if there's other things that might come up during, if you just want to lease one and pay straight up for the other one, or if you want to lease two and pay straight up for one, like if you want to increase the value of your bus fleet while still being able to have that extra cushion there as a backup, or you're still going to come out ahead.
Which we need to. The higher the value of your bus fleet, the more your reimbursement is.
And that's what
Right.
she's
And
saying,
we've-
you're gonna make
And we've
$54,000.
We've let ours get so old.
And the main reason that I revisited this was because of the decrease, in the interest rate. You know, last year you were looking at, I think, a 7.5% rate. We're now it's down to 6.15. So, yeah, so where you were looking at potentially for 3 buses paying 91,000, it's 64,000 now.
So what's the negative aspect in doing it? Is there one?
The negative aspect would just be, if you had the money up front to do it, you wouldn't be losing anything in interest. You'd be gaining the full amount as bus allowance.
If you just
So
bought the
this-
buses straight out?
Right, if you bought the buses straight out. So this is an option, like, if you don't have enough to buy the 3 buses, or you want to cushion something somewhere else, it would never be a good idea to just take the bus allowance money
Correct.
and not buy any, because then you're
Correct.
really hurting yourself.
Yeah,
So
that's
worst case,
how we got in trouble.
right. And in that process of at least leasing them, you're making money. So where before the bus allowance money was taken and no buses were purchased, you would have at least been able to make that 30 or 40,000 a year.
So you get the new buses, you make potentially
So in a
$54,000.
situation where you're looking at ours, like we currently have 13 buses that are over 12 years old. So right now we have 13 buses on our fleet that we receive 0 funding for.
How many are you allowed to purchase each year to get funding for?
Movies,
As
yeah,
many as you
money
can
will
afford to purchase. I don't think there's any limit. I don't think there's any
13 and lease them,
limit.
and
You could lease as much as they'll give you the leasing value, the money for, and use that money to purchase the buses.
that way
They're
your
gonna fund the
fleet
buses
amount
for
would be
you.
Current,
Your fleet value goes up,
correct.
even though you're paying out, you're making money. Like, I don't see a negative to it at all when you're coming out $54,000 to the good. You get new buses out of the process too.
What if we lease
Can't you?
all 13?
Well, all 13, we probably
would
would be hard to
Make the payments.
All
Yeah,
right,
because you want to make
that's
this
what I'm
payment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Come on.
what I was gonna say with it, because there's a 2-year delay. So
You got to make the payments in the
you would have to
meantime,
make the payments until you got to the point where you would start receiving
So,
those.
the value back on the buses.
I guess
Are
it's a year and
these
a
all
half delay
buses
because
we
it's not a full
actually
2 years.
use?
But like
are
next
they
year,
sitting on the?
we'll be funded next year based on 25. So those buses that we would be leasing during 26 would not be reflected on what we would get reimbursed for. So you'd have to make it through the
Next year.
to 27 before you would get credit for those buses.
But if you can make a $6,285 payment on it,
It would free up the 284,000 that you could have there in case. an
Just in
emergency-
case you needed it.
I don't know,
Yeah.
Hopefully, nothing major happens, but in case something did come up, you would have that sitting there as kind of a cushion while you're still making money and not getting buses because you want to hold that bus allowance and use it for something
Right.
else.
and you don't have to use the bus replacement money. You don't have to go spend it just because you have it there and freed up. You could just hold on to it as in case of an emergency, right?
Can you
Would it
carry
benefit
over?
us to
Yeah,
pay
yeah,
off?
There's no,
No penalty for carrying it over.
Would it benefit us to use that money to pay off the light lease, which we're paying interest on also? That would, I mean, you could
you
technically
You
do
could-
that,
yeah, you could swap
save
something out,
interest
because
there.
The state doesn't look at what, they just look at the number of buses that you increase by. So it doesn't matter whether you did it with this pot of money or that pot of money, or leased them or they're strictly gonna look at what's on this transportation thing from next year. Or the
So are
year
you are you all trying to be aggressive instead of getting 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 or 5?
We just have to make sure that we can make the payment monthly because
I
that
think it
money's
was
coming
kind of a
later.
combination of both. It was kind of a combination of increase our bus fleet and make it better and get a larger reimbursement.
Sure, I mean, you're gonna have
But
18
then
months.
also kind of carve, maybe have 100,000 over here that we have to like just kind of cushion our excess at the same
that's-
It sounds like
time.
you're gonna have 18 months of paying it yourself.
Right.
If you
Right,
do it.
right.
Right.
The only thing that bothers me about it is when you look at the big picture, you're thinking, well, we're leasing these buses, then we're taking this other money to go balance our budget. So you need to,
It's not to balance
well, I'm
necessarily.
just saying though, that's the appearance comes here. You're gonna take that bus money and pay bills that you may not have money for at the time, and you're still making this bus payment. That's the only negative things that I see.
If we weren't carrying over the money we were carrying over and had the budget we had, because I feel pretty secure with where we are financially, that we wouldn't have to use that money for anything.
Well,
We
what's the
didn't even
purpose of
talk
doing
about the
Or
lights.
I mean, I'm fine if you want to use.
You're gonna make-
all of
you're
the
doing it
bus
'cause you're making
money and buy
$54,000.
3 or 4 and lease 2
That's
of them.
That's the only reason I liked it. Because when
Right.
we talked, to me, if you can just do that, no, everything else to the side, plan on never touching that money. But making $54,000, there's nothing but, in my opinion, a good outcome. Worst case scenario, if something crazy happens and there's a catastrophic event, we would have that money there, but you would never have to plan to touch it.
Or if you want to buy 4 buses and just use that to make the payments
Sure.
for the next however long. I mean, I don't think we need that money for anything. I'm just saying like,
You're making money in the
you're
end.
making money in the end.
Well, let me ask some questions about these leases. Can they increase the amount of interest during your lease contract? And how long is the lease contract?
Well, one of those columns is for 5 years and one of those columns is for 4 years. Those were the 2 that he,
And then you get a
They're
new
locked in.
bus?
No,
I mean, are they gonna, are they
She's not
gonna,
understanding the, Yeah.
This is lease to own, right?
yeah, it would be
Yes.
ours. And the
Yes.
buses we receive that bus allocation for each bus for 12 years.
right, and see, so the problem for me is that I look at this chart and I see that we need to, this is the last year on 4 buses. And I know that last year that we got some new ones and it says 0, but I think that what that is the year we took Melvin's money.
oh,
and
that was
we
more than
didn't
2
buy
years
any
ago. No,
buses.
that
The
was,
6 year ago probably is when you took.
no.
It was
I've been here, this is my 8th, it was the 11th.
6 and 11 both have 0.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we haven't, this is my
So,
8th year and
The 2-year one is when COVID, everything got caught up and the buses didn't get delivered until late. So in year 1, you see 5.
yeah, they made them. We just didn't get them until the
Yeah,
next
we
year.
were
Okay.
2 one of those
They're
years and 3
behind.
the other, but because of the delay and all of that, they were very, very late coming.
I don't know
Well,
why
but
that's
So
So
what
next
does
year.
hurt us
I feel like
is
we've gotten
our bus
buses every
allowance
year.
is gonna
I
go
don't know what
down
that year is,
if we don't replace 4 buses.
unless it was 2 and 1 and it was a
And,
delay thing.
but when, I mean, I think what's important for us to determine is that, to look and see these 13 buses. Are they actually being run? Do we need to surplus them or?
Do you want me to
what do
have
we
Josh
need to
come in?
do?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
I told him we would do that. I forgot.
Because- Because,
Oh.
I mean, that's a lot we're not getting anything for if we're actively running them.
Last year when we did this, I believe we were running 3 of those.
So the 13,
3 of them, and then others were there in case one didn't start, like you had a, and I don't
sure.
know how many, Melvin would probably know, but I don't know how many you want to have as extra, or need to have as extra. Some, I guess, too, are if we have a sub take a field trip or, they're running.
And I think one's a handicap, you have to have handicap backups. And then one or two of them he was saying was in better shape than some of the current buses like we had, like they were just good buses.
But if you're not running them, that's not good for them.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think so, because they're
I
diesel.
would assume that they're being run regularly, but he'd have to answer that question.
But I mean, we have 13 buses that we're getting nothing for. And, so two,
Four.
That
seven,
doesn't hurt them
eight,
if they sit
nine,
there for a
10,
few months. I
11,
wouldn't want them to sit there a few years.
12,
But if they're sitting there 2 or 3 months not being started, it's not that big a deal.
And the
So
Ford is
there's-
gonna be added to that number.
So there's
Yeah.
27, including the 4 that we're actively running. So, I mean, we've got to stay ahead of these numbers, and it doesn't look like it'd be any huge task. The hurdle's going to be this 4 and the 13. And maybe if we did that over the next, say, 3 years or so, if we could get those numbers back up.
I would say try to get 4 or 5 a year. And then if you're doing the lease thing, and you're sucking it up for 18 months, but then you're actually gonna come out to the good,
And you
Yeah,
have
you're
that,
gonna
you
get-
have that bus allowance money
start to
to
increase.
make those payments.
After-
Right.
Over the 18.
Yeah.
18 months or so that you're.
Right.
So lease
Well,
them,
the
make the
12
payments with the
months,
bus
and then
allowance
the
money,
next-
'Cause that's
then
what
in
I'm
the end,
looking
you
at.
make 50 some
What's your bus
thousand
allowance?
dollars.
Where is it?
Over the
18
period of the
It is
lease.
280.
Over the- Yes.
A year.
Over the 4 years.
Well,
or
your-
the 5
Your
years.
value, but your value of your bus fleet's immediately gonna go up. So you're gonna
Right.
start seeing the benefits of
What
that.
we need
How
to
many
do is
buses?
figure what
How
our
many
value
lease?
of our bus lease is. And then we
What does
need
that
to
be?
compare it to the monthly.
I think she considered, ask her that question, Dixie, because I think she figured that.
284.
You don't have the
284 divided by 12. It'd be 23,000. So you could max at 8 buses.
a year.
I mean, that would wipe you. I mean, that
Right,
would
so
wipe
if
it.
you plan on 5 or 6, you would still stay within your current budget if you were buying them instead of leasing to own them. You should always say lease to own, because it does sound like at the end of 5
We're
years.
only
We gotta give them
allowed
back.
to do that.
Yeah, that would not be good.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're only allowed to lease them.
Okay. I think we'd be crazy not to jump on that.
I agree.
And I would be aggressive in getting 7 or 8 or whatever she said, stay under with a cushion, but that way it would take care of your concern on that page you're looking at, 13 plus 4, 17 buses. It's over. You know, you're gonna,
I don't think there's a way to lose with it unless I'm
Well,
missing an
can we
important
get that
piece.
Unless
many
you just got
buses?
yourself to
We have a
the
hard time
Well,
getting
that's
2
true.
buses. You know, they say to us, oh, yeah, you know, I'm sure they'd be glad to do it, but it might be 5 years till we get the buses.
I don't know.
And I don't know when we typically order, if you could order them.
And is this lease, is it a new bus, a brand new
Yeah.
bus?
Oh, yeah. We
Yeah,
still buy our
exactly.
buses. They're just a company giving us the money. Our bus buying process is the same. It's through the company we choose. Am I right? They're just
Yeah,
giving us the money. It doesn't,
Yeah,
they're not
Country Roads
connected.
leasing, I
The
think
bus
about every
company
county
and the
leases with
leasing-
them for buses.
Yeah, this is a leasing company, the place we purchased. They're not
Not
connected.
connected.
They're not the same
Well,
people.
could we do any better just with the local bank?
Possibly, I mean, we can check that.
I mean, why pay a
He-
third party that's, you know, why don't we
Yeah.
check with our
He
local
just
banks
always- I
and
mean-
see?
That's fine.
We can do that.
He's just always at ASBO, and I mean, he shoots me an email back within usually 5 minutes, and it's just quick and easy to get, so I thought I'd start there.
Sure, but I mean, if this company can do it, then I would think some others would too, because all they are is providing money. From what we've been able to ascertain is that basically we're borrowing money from them, and I know that you have to lease the
We
stuff.
have to lease, which is usually one of the hangups with the banks.
So
but we
how are
can-
they doing the lease if if we're still having to purchase it?
How's who doing the lease?
She's saying, how is Country Roads doing the lease for us if we're purchasing, we're the ones doing the purchasing?
Because we would purchase them under state contract, right?
Right.
We're signing an agreement with them for the money for the buses. So it's just a formal lease agreement. We're telling them this is what we're doing with the money. I'm assuming they may even cut the initial check directly to the company, but they're not the same. So it's not like the bus company saying, hey, here, work with these people to do this. It's two separate folks that we're seeking out separately. It'd be like you're buying a car, you're going to the bank to get the same difference. They're saying we're going to give the money to the car dealership for that particular car. I'm sure these folks are going to say, make sure that that money that we're spending is going directly to the bus company. So it'd be the same process.
I think that you could do it with the bank too.
We can definitely reach out and ask them.
I mean, there's the man.
They had questions about buses, which ones we're using, which ones we're not, Josh, ages, that kind of thing.
Any idea how many of those buses that are over 12 years old?
No, I can run out there and grab that spreadsheet real quick. It'll tell us the dates on everything.
That would be great.
We have a
Thank you.
second.
Yep, go for it.
I know that we can't borrow money, but we borrow it anyway.
Mhm.
You know, we borrowed from Pendleton Community Bank to get something.
The track,
Yeah,
we leased it. Mhm. Because that was one of the things we had with them.
Well,
They,
I think they're still trying to figure out
how they're going to do that. Yeah.
Because it's gotta be done as a lease. That's the only reason I said the banks seem to have sort of a hold up or a hang up on that. But I have no problem reaching out to the banks, I will. But the leasing piece seems to be, and honestly, I don't know why. Like, I don't know what
Mhm.
that difference is.
Because we don't
But-
have I'm sure it has to do with credit backing. How when you borrow money, you're using someone's credit, and here we don't, as an organization, probably it's a little different.
Or what even the leasing term versus, I don't know why the state has a hang up on borrowing versus
The lease piece.
leasing. I mean, essentially you're doing the same thing.
do you know Rob Tissue at Barkin Harbor?
Rob.
Tissue? He's magic.
Okay.
Okay, and if there's anybody that could tell you what is going on, it would be Rob. Giving him the example of this place and how they're doing it. He would be able to tell you. And I don't mean to be funny it could be that this lease might have a smell to it.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
He's been around.
They've
for
been around a long time.
And he works with a lot of the counties.
Yeah.
Like
Like years and years and years. They're not a new, it's a
Well,
pretty
I
common
remember
practice.
We did this with lights or with something, I think it was lights, that we borrowed money from someone to,
The field lights?
no, it wasn't
Oh.
field lights. This was when Vita was here for changing over some lights.
I don't know about that.
That we did and it was somewhere out in Fairmont that we paid, that we borrowed from. So, but if these people know how to do it, then we should be able to do that. What's the word?
16 buses are over 12 years old.
16, wow.
How many are you running?
We run 29, we had 29 routes.
Okay.
We use more than 29 buses, because we have spares and whatnot.
Sure, oh, yeah.
And what, trips and, out of those 42, all 42 have done runs this year.
Oh, so there's 42 total.
There's 42 total.
I didn't hear
Yes,
that.
yeah, there's 42 total.
29 routes.
And, 29 routes. At some point in time, they've all been,
That's a large portion of your fleet still running routes.
yes.
Oh,
Yeah, now, we
I
take
think
those
only
older
40
ones.
runs, right? So
Say
isn't
again?
one of those buses the one at Morford Elementary School and one of them the band bus? Or no?
The other, it'd be included, wouldn't it?
Maybe not. Maybe
I don't think
one
we-
part it
Not on
went
our
to
books.
42.
It's not-
I'm just
it's not
remembering.
on-
Yeah, not on their
42.
list.
It's not on our book for the department.
We had to insure them, but I don't think
So
it
you
runs,
say
does
there's
run on that list.
16 that are over 12 years? Is that
There's only
because,
40 on here, right?
FMCSA report.
I'll do that.
How many of those 16 are run on a daily basis?
20.
It depends. I can go through it real quick. One,
There's only 40 on here.
four, five of them.
5? Are any of those 5 ones that we keep seeing invoices for from Miller? You know, I mean, because,
You talking about the large scale, like, yeah, 51 is one of them that's done that several times. And then,
yeah,
the
that,
ones in the 40s,
in
Those are-
53?
Mhm.
In the 53 that busts up all the time?
I know 51's always.
53 is the one we put a new motor in 2 years ago. It hasn't done anything in a couple of years.
Okay,
55 is
Okay.
exactly like 53, but 55 is a handicap bus that has that same, was it truck motor, Melvin? It's just it's a international screwed up. They'll tell you they screwed up when they put that in there, but we have 2 of those buses. But we have 2 handicapped students that we haul every day, and we can't put them on the same bus. We both of our regular bus, the one that we just bought new last year, and then the bus 55, which is an issue bus, it runs every day now as well, picking up.
so it sounds like that it would be a good one to get rid of.
It's over 12 or under 12?
That
Yeah, I
one's
missed
actually
that.
under. Yeah,
So we
but
don't
that's
wanna
one
get
of the
rid of that
buses. No, we can't.
Because we're still getting money for it.
For
Well, but if
one
it
more
breaks
year.
all the time,
That's what we get back for it, compensate what we put out in repairs.
It's gonna be, based off of the old amount for, I mean, I don't know what individual repairs is, but based on the old amount for 23, it would be almost 19,000 a year per bus. That's the old, so 142.
unless you repair it, replace a motor, you probably just pay your repair maintenance on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at individually how much they do cost us and maintenance. I mean,
adopt Pepsi.
Or transmission, is
Caffeine
big,
free,
the rest of them are
Thank you.
small stuff.
I'm hoping not by giving too much caffeine.
Since you coach, Josh,
Say again.
I said, since you coach football, and I coached, what, is it the same people that drive you on away trips? Same bus driver, same bus?
Well, a lot of times, yes.
And this is what I'm getting at. You know, all these other counties got air conditioned bus. Do we have any? No. And then I've always asked that question for the last 30 years, and they always said customers. Well, you sit in there and I've sit in there in August.
It's miserable.
It's miserable. You sit in there on baseball trips. You know, this month has been amazingly cool, but not normal. And of course, now we got what, track, I guess, got probably take buses in the heat of. So I just don't understand why we can't get 4 buses with air conditioning, 2 for each side of the mountain. And surely that would take care of most of your athletic trips during the heat of the fall and spring. Maybe not.
What's the difference in cost
It's around 9,000
per bus?
coming off the line. Yeah, to add it, I think was somewhere around 12,000. They could add it. So
Okay.
you could take a bus and add it.
Now I was thinking about
12,000.
ordering them.
I
The
think
new ones.
9,000. That was the last time I priced it. That was like 3 years ago. So it could be more than that. now.
$28,000.
Yeah.
It's probably.
For air conditioning?
I-
Saves you money. I'm saving you money.
You know, maybe I'm soft, but I just think,
No, well, Grant County mandated that all their buses from this point, just a couple of years ago, all have air conditioning.
there you go.
Pendleton County has Tucker County has air conditioning. Tucker County has air conditioned buses.
Snowing in May up there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my opinion. I just think we need to, that would be a good investment to, these kids put in a lot of effort, these coaches put in a lot of effort. We already said they didn't get paid squat. At least they could go to and from and comfort a little bit.
Now, that piece will not be part of the reimburse allowance, because it's just.
I figured not.
Yeah, it's just on the base amount.
So there goes $9,000 off of your interest.
What you're gaining back.
Yeah, really.
Well, you could use that
So, I mean, you have to
$54,000
look at
to
all
pay
this
for air
stuff.
conditioning. I mean, I'd put air conditioning in 6 buses.
Does it cost more to operate an air conditioned bus? But I've been on those sweaty buses.
The hard part would be the management of the job.
Right, because
Trying to
everybody
figure out
will
who's gonna get that bus.
You're exactly
who's
right.
gonna run that
I mean,
And then when
I'm just
someone
not saying
takes-
it out loud.
A
When
trip
someone
somebody
takes
else
a trip,
gets to
do they
lose.
take their
It
bus or
really
someone else's
It
bus?
really is.
If
Because the
it's the air
same guys
conditioned
that
bus, they would want that
drive
one.
those buses in the
Not the
fall
same
are not the
thing.
same guys that drive those buses in the spring.
If you
And they don't want to switch bus.
And they're not going to.
Usually.
They're going to fight me on it. I mean, they'll do it, but it's going to be that headache. And I mean, you understand that too.
Until you
And
get.
I
Till you
think
get them
it's
all
great when it's
swapped out.
Ownership, when they take ownership in that thing and they take care of it, you can tell who has ownership and who doesn't when you walk out on that bus lot. But, if I start giving those guys, I'm like, hey, I gotta switch it over if you're not gonna do this one. So it'd be, but I just didn't say it because it's my worry, not yours.
Well,
And I'll do whatever you guys want.
No, if
I
it's
just
not
didn't price it
something-
that way. No.
I mean, if they're not asking about it,
it's
coaches
great.
aren't asking for it.
Oh, they all do. I mean, the coach is asking for it. I mean, Stutler gives me a hard time about it. The football guys never say anything. They complain. I think, well, I did. However many years I did, you can do it too. It's just that old school mentality.
I understand.
Yeah, I
Suck
walked
it up.
uphill by flash.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
We used to go to high school with no air conditioning, didn't we,
did
Mr.
used to
Hines?
go to school.
Yeah.
That's not.
And that's kind of, how I do it.
Yeah.
Can I take that?
June was
We
900.
buy 2 buses at $18,000, maybe it's $20,000, and then over the next 10 years we're here for, that could have been another bus. Over that 10-year period, that's just how I kind of look at things too. I mean, if we want air conditioning, let's do air conditioning. I'll do whatever you guys want, and then I'll take the hit of it. Yeah, this is the.
Well,
FCC,
I think we need to look at more detailed stuff. We need to check with the bank.
Okay.
And see
that.
what we can do, and then we need to look and see, how many we could buy. And
As many as you
if
can
they
pay the payment for, I think.
Well,
Because you got to be able to pay that monthly payment either with that bus allowance money that you're going to get year to year. I guess you could take that amount of money, divide it out, and see how many buses you can afford to pay based upon making that payment, and then increase the amount you're going to make overall. Yeah, correct. You don't want to start spending, yeah.
oh yeah, where we're digging into our mileage and all our expenses and stuff. We can't afford to do that.
Yeah, but we can do the math and figure it out.
We just talked about that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Talked about what?
We'll bring that to maybe the June board meeting. Try to get the breakdown, talk to some banks between now and then. That'll give us a little time and see if they can do it and see how many we can purchase and what the different, using that bus replacement money, how much that'll increase the amount we make, how we manage it over time.
And in that time period, I can take those buses that are issue buses and figure out which ones we could get rid of.
Yeah, that'd be
the big
good.
money buses. And
That'd be, yeah,
Yeah.
that would help us.
That'll work.
Well, and so we're still getting mileage on these buses that are
Yeah.
over 12,
we are,
but not any money back. I mean,
it's not formulated into the formula.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, we still get the maintenance money and the fuel money. Just
And
not-
so
it's
we
not
need to
formula
see,
money.
For the value, yeah.
we need to see how much the money for those that are over 12 is.
Hurt us.
And yeah, because if the ones that are over 12 years, if they aren't hurting us with maintenance and stuff, it could be that that's not as big a problem, even though we're not getting money for them. Does that make sense? If we're still getting reimbursed for mileage, for maintenance, for gasoline, I mean,
Just that adding new ones to it increases the total formula
Absolutely.
amount back, so that's the
Yeah.
only swap.
But with as many as we have,
Yeah.
it's gonna take a little bit to get them all swapped out. And, then we have a chunk this year with 4 of them getting ready to
That's
exit
what I would like to replace,
the
Those
4.
the 4, and see how
And let
that,
these others go through
for
attrition.
now, and see how that, and maybe, I don't know which 4. I mean, it might be one that's 11 years, but still costing us more, that you're willing to sacrifice that 12th year of reimbursement or whatever to get rid of. Or maybe it is all ones that are over 12.
I think I'd go for 12.
I would kind of like to start with 4, because that's what we're gonna lose, and I don't want our allowance to decrease that significantly next year. And then just see how it works out with those 4, where you can start to see it increase, and then maybe, then if you wanna jump to 6 or whatever,
And so
but I
what
would
kind of,
feel comfortable
what
starting
kind
with
of-
4.
I agree with you. And I think we need to see some figures and go from there. And, I'm trying to think with those sports things. I mean, you could kind of save those 2 buses if you got 2 on each side. You could kind of save them for athletic stuff.
You wanna fight that battle?
They'd really go nuts with they and field trips, or even if it,
The public would go nuts.
Yeah.
You parked them and didn't run them?
Two buses that are not getting-
Okay.
Yeah.
We'd have this
Okay.
room full,
would we?
we would have this room
Well, I
packed full.
should
Beans,
know
balls,
that
buildings, and
because
buses.
it's-
We'll add another B to the list.
If we look at the numbers, I think it's good. We could get rid of 4. Get those 4.
Oh, well, I think she needs, almost need to make a call, she to take care of money, so she thinks 4 is the reason one to go after.
And you can look and see exactly what's going on there.
I just, Josh, so you're saying the drivers, if you had 2 new buses, definitely, and they're for athletic trips or field trips only, they wouldn't want to drive them, they still want to drive their own?
No. They,
Oh, that's what I thought
they
you
would
said.
drive. No, what you would have is you'd have an issue that you have 2 brand new buses sitting out there, and that's all that they're there for, it's just extracurriculars.
Oh, no.
Your
He's saying
community
you'd want to
would be-
use them every day.
Well, yeah, you want to run them every day.
Yeah.
So that, and they get assigned to someone, and he's saying that if that person doesn't drive
Oh, I know
to
that,
the football, that they
Yeah.
really race that,
I just,
or whatever.
Until you got all of them.
Until everybody has an air conditioning bus.
you know more than me, but that's,
Based on seniority.
Cleanest bus inspection record for the year gets the new bus with the air conditioner.
Something like that. Make them work
Highest
for it.
rate. Or you could put all their names in a hat and draw one out.
I'm getting a headache right now. Again, he just smiles.
Make them give a presentation as to why they should get the new bus. Yeah, write an essay about why they are the ones.
With AI, we might have some good ones.
Shark Tank it.
Spell it out.
Let's do Shark Tank.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Josh.
thank you, John.
See you here shortly. Wait, no, not tonight, right?
Well, it'll be
No,
interesting,
here tonight. Yeah.
you know.
I never thought of that.
Can't remember who's
angle.
coming.
Yeah. Just a couple of air conditioning
Who's
buses.
coming and who's going?
Oh, yeah, there would be more.
Yeah. He's your favorite.
They didn't cancel the ball game.
There would be anyone
We'd
have
be
any-
getting doctors' excuses of why somebody
disappointing.
needed an air conditioned bus.
Anyone have any questions with that? Or additional before we move on? Tab 8 is just, potential upcoming expenses,
The first is an email where the comp came out regarding the PEI and the 14% increase, so you guys can see that. The second one was the quote that we received about the flooring for the multi-purpose building. Some of these I just put in there because just to have there. The third one is the quote to fix the elevator at East Hardy Elementary School, $116,000.
Wow. Couldn't it be replaced?
We need to
Less
put a
than that?
slicky slide in.
Actually, we probably shouldn't let Josh leave because he probably couldn't answer anything about that.
It was replacing basically the computer board is bad, and when you upgrade the computer board, you have to replace multiple pieces of the current system. So it was like this chunk comes out, another one goes in. It was a whole rebuilding basically of the
So
elevator.
basically, it would amount to a
Mhm.
new elevator.
Yeah, basically, it's basically amounting to a new elevator. Our thoughts on that was when we do our SBA request for this upcoming year for funding, we thought, I think next on our list is HVAC at Moorfield Elementary School. I think that's like the next thing in our plan. So we thought maybe we would couple that Moorfield project with this East Hardy project and submit them together, kind of like we did the doors, windows, and the stuff. And we talked to Orrin, and he said, as long as we're actively working on a plan as far as ADA compliance, it still works right now. Right, Orrin?
Right.
Just open and closing still.
And looking in the, I think Ms. Morris had done some follow-up with that, and
Yeah.
turns out that it is functional, but it's one of those things is that in order to be in compliance with the ADA, it can't be something that is left. Once the issue is known and we're on notice of it, have to take those steps. And obviously, circumstances like this cannot be an overnight type of thing, but as long as it's not neglected and it's something that steps are taken to correct the issue, and we have alternatives in place to ensure that we are still ADA compliant in the interim, that it's unlikely that we'll have any sort of issue.
Well, what's this thing here that says it's 3D I-rays and I'm sure that's for the floors and stuff, and 2019 code compliant. Man, that's 6 years out. What's going with
It's
that?
probably the newest code would be my guess, that the 2019 code is probably the most recent code that addresses what they need with the IRAs compliant, meaning everything's going to be, if you're in a wheelchair, I'm assuming that would mean eye level if you're in the wheelchair for
Okay.
ADA compliance. And I would say 2019 is just the most recent code. So when it says will be 2019 code compliant, I think that's just
I'd
the,
definitely check
most
that
recent
out.
code.
It's certain.
yeah.
Be our luck, that.
There's a brand new one that we're,
Uh-huh,
have to update it.
yeah. They're selling us surplus.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean, honestly.
We definitely would. We definitely would when the time comes. And we'll work with some firms to make sure that when we do that, we're meeting all of our codes up to date anyway when we do that SBA project. But I think requesting the money that way is better than paying it out of pocket at this
Yeah,
point. I feel like it's a good project.
Because the elevator, we wouldn't actually need the elevator except for the gym and the cafeteria.
Yeah. And they can access that part of the building now from the exterior, which is inconvenient, but it's not like we have a complete section of the building that's not accessible to someone that's handicapped. So they can still get in just from the outside. So in the meantime, like Warren was saying, we have a way to get them to all parts of the building, but we need to be proactive in moving on this before it completely shuts down.
Yeah, it's
Gonna
definitely
happen.
quit on it.
Yeah, it is. It is.
The page that I handed out was the increase in run for the year.
Oh, our insurance, sorry, that's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. Roughly $28,000 increase there. Which I don't think.
I didn't think was bad.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as much as they were expecting. And we are currently shopping that out. Adam is working, we filled out a very extensive, very long, application the other day where you could, just check with, there's another insurance company that has now come into West Virginia. So he was gonna shop that out for us just to see what someone else might have to offer.
Yeah, those brim things are crazy.
Mhm.
I used to have to fill them out for Fraley's. Oh, it would
Well,
take
this
me
was for
days
the
and
new-
days.
Yeah, this was for the new company and it took me quite a few days. And everyone else that I
It was a joint affair.
It was a joint affair. This was the current year for the dental and vision. We haven't heard anything yet. They're expecting it to increase some.
Thanks.
You're welcome. They're expecting it to increase some. Grant County's went up 14%. But theirs was higher than ours to start with, so I don't know if ours would go up 14% or not, but anyway, I estimated it based on if ours did go up 14% and only their dental increase. So if that did happen in our case, the cost would increase October 1st for that new plan date by $11,577. It's there at the bottom of that page. But she also said that they were shopping that out as well to try to get.
So we're paying 103 now, is that what you're saying?
Yes, and we paid that each time. It has yet to increase.
How many years have we had that?
Got it.
I think it's 3.
Just after COVID, I think, right?
And that's what
Yeah, it's
cost
just
us a year,
after because everybody was wanting.
Annual.
103, roughly. Now, another numbers, that was based on 288, I think. Sometimes a number will increase or like it might be 289 and 287 a month or two, or then it goes back and forth, but roughly it's been about, the rate has been the same, the $23.90 and the $6.40 that stayed the same for 3 years. So now we might have had a couple employees increase or decrease, but the rate's been the same.
And how many people, everybody got this, didn't they?
Everybody had the option for it.
Everyone had the option.
We-
Currently, we have 288.
It's accepted.
And last year when they gave us the thing, it was 284 and 283, but right
Out
now.
of how many total employees?
312?
315 probably.
Yeah, I said 312, so somewhere in there. Mhm. We pay for it for the individual employee and then they can pay to add their family and children, spouse and children, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the last page I put in here was just, I have this in my office and every once in a while I'll hear somebody mention something and just add it to the list. So there's, not that all or any of these would be, it's just me hearing somebody mention something and throwing it up there to Lynn that if we ever got serious about it and sat around the table and discussed what we thought, we might have a starting point. But some of them I think are really good things. Some are, maybe things you need to do. Some are things maybe that don't need to be done. I don't know, but I'm just keeping them on this list. The boot camp thingy I think is a really good thing. I know a lot of counties bring in teachers for a week during the summer or 2 weeks during the summer where they go over a lot of the professional development stuff that we try to cram in during, just because we don't have another option, but we try to cram in during the year. And as that stuff increases each year, the amount that you have to go over and the things that you have to do. But they have that built into their excess levy where they can pay teachers for that week or those hours or whatever that they come in to go over some of that professional development. And maybe doing it during the summer when you're not trying to rush through it and get, cover all your bases and do everything that's required of you, maybe
Might sink
they
in
can
a little
focus
more.
better and, maybe things will be fresher.
Who does that, Grant County?
I don't know. Some of the other, several of the counties do some of the boot camp programs for different teachers or different categories of personnel. We did talk about, the maintenance truck. I think it's, either.
Something on the
is it
frame.
one with the plow.
Mhm.
A potential for that would be
a couple of different potentials. One would be,
Who's she talking to? Oh, I was like,
one would be, we have that ability to ask for well, if we code something with the X27XX for reimbursement through the transportation, as long as it pertains to transporting students. So we have the ability to purchase a truck, carve a % off of that for what is plowing the bus parking lots and plowing the bus lanes. That would all be related to the transportation of students to the schools. We could carve that percentage out and get that reimbursement as part of the
you checked on that?
transportation.
That's good.
Or we could contract out plowing those lots.
And they'll reimburse us then the 95%?
95%. We just have to make sure that we don't go over. There is a ceiling on the max that you can get reimbursed.
Right.
We would have to make sure that we didn't go over that. Now, for this current upcoming year, I think we were like 30,000 from it.
Okay.
So now, obviously, once anything went over that, and I don't know if that's because it would be 24 expenses. Usually, we're not that close. So I don't know if there was stuff that we purchased that was higher than 24 or things that we did related to transportation. Usually, we're 60, 70 below it. Sometimes, like when we bought the radios and stuff, we got a little bit closer to that ceiling, or did some of that stuff, we got closer.
Okay.
It doesn't hurt us to go over, other than the fact that we won't get the reimbursement. for it.
Sure,
So if
sure.
we're 10,000 over, we won't get 9,500 back for that 10,000. So we wouldn't want to do that, or we would want to make it to where we paid for parts something 1 year and let it go over to the next year and pay the difference to try not to go over. But you would have those options. I have no idea what is a better option or what is more, and I don't know why our truck that we just got didn't last longer than it did.
Do we have plowing services around here?
You mean the
Would do
new truck
that?
that you just bought?
It wasn't new, but the.
Right.
The
right,
used one for the plow, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
there's people
The
that do
front
like
end busted.
sheets and-
front end.
What happened?
The
Well,
frame
used to.
busted where the plow was,
Hey, they get those
The-
John Millers.
the frame underneath, and there were several other issues with it. I think Travis fixed it and fixed it and fixed it, and finally was just like,
Probably had something wrong.
you're
with
putting
one we
all this
bought.
money in it. I mean, it was a chunk of money. He was wanting to fix this last issue, and it was not worth it to
I
us.
don't know. The file wasn't too big for it. I mean, I'm not sure what. I guess all that was what it should have been. But
Unless it-
anyway, I don't,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
like I said, I don't know which way is the better overall way to go with that, whether we
We'll do the,
consider contracting it out or whether we buy another truck.
Are there
and
folks
try to
around here that
carve
do
out a
that? That
percent.
would be able to keep up with 6 schools? Because if you can get that reimbursed at 95% and not have to buy another
As
vehicle,
long as you
to
don't go
me,
over.
that sounds
Not
Like
have to worry
good
about
idea.
getting it done.
right. And you're not dependent upon getting your people in here and our folks potentially tearing equipment up trying to do it. I feel like, but I don't know who does
I
that.
think C's tired, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know who's got Walmart contract, but sometimes they just leave something down there.
Maybe we could put that out for bid and see who we get. I mean, there's no way to predict
Mhm.
how many times you're gonna
No,
need
but,
it plowed.
It probably
but-
would be done quicker because, you've got 3 maintenance guys.
We would need to put that in there too, probably in that. I mean, I guess if school's canceled, it doesn't have to be done quickly, but if there's a potential for a 2-hour delay in
Yeah.
getting the kids in, then we would need to be like a top of your priority
Mhm.
list thing.
Mhm.
I guess depending on whether school's trying to operate.
Whether
on
it's
a-
3 feet of snow or 3 inches, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Then you would
And I don't
know.
know how you word that exactly, but like school's canceled, then whatever, we can be at the
Got an
last,
extra day to do
the
it.
last on your
But
day,
you're not
your
building that.
daily thing, but if we're having a potential to have school that day, then we need you to be.
Yeah,
we
see,
need to be
I,
at the top of your
if
list.
school cancels, I still would say they need to get to us because we need to determine early.
It's probably
We're gonna
just,
be able to see the next day.
you'd probably have to go into that almost expecting that they prioritize us and just start cleaning and assuming we're gonna try to get in. And then we just make our decision based upon if it's still snowing or not, or if they, like we'd almost have to be on that priority list. because you don't want to have to guess every time, or you'd be in the same boat you're in now. Like, is it going to keep snowing? Is it going to stop snowing? Did you know? Unless it's a blizzard, like literally, they're calling for a foot of snow.
But
Then
at the same time, I mean, I see the other side of it. If they, they're in
They had
their,
businesses where people were coming.
yeah,
and
if
knew
and they
we
know
were
we're
canceled,
closed.
Then you
Yeah.
don't need to be there within an hour.
Mhm.
You can go do those and then.
Yeah, like they
Yeah.
work based off of if we
Yeah.
cancel or not,
Right.
but we don't cancel based on whether or not they're
Oh,
there.
yeah.
kind of
the
I'm
opposite.
just saying,
Yeah.
they don't know.
Yeah,
if the buses can't make the route,
Unless it's a big.
then,
yeah, that's a whole other,
yeah. I mean.
That'd be
we're-
interesting to put
we're
out. I would be curious and
expending-
do-
We're expending
doing that.
money and I guess it has to get scraped anyway.
yeah.
But
Well, and you're getting
still maybe-
95% back versus having to buy additional equipment to do that with. And it really, if they did it well, you could get back in as to where there've been times like,
Where you could
Our three
purchase
guys
I
can't.
don't know how much tractors are that would plow.
yeah,
You
Pretty
purchase
expensive,
one
trucks are
for
pretty expensive.
East Hardy, one for, I'm saying you.
purchase
you
them
have
for all the
options,
spots and have somebody go do one.
But you
You don't
can't,
get reimbursed for that.
Mhm.
Tractor?
if it would be for, specifically used for the transportation of students, like allowing kids to be able to be transported due to. Same way with the truck, you could purchase a
You'd have to
truck,
have somewhere to store it.
5%. If you said 35% of it
Make sure
was
they weren't
used
using it on the
for
football field.
plowing or,
Baseball field.
people's hard out.
That's probably.
And the gas for it. And,
But at the same time, you don't want to go over that. That's, you know,
necessary.
Used.
I feel like that's probably part of it. Here's that. I would love to get the
Probably that.
estimate on
nothing hurts, I guess. to
contracting
put it
that out,
so
just
it
to
is-
see what it is, especially if you get it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think that would be a good thing to do.
Full drive. Yeah.
And your spec
Similar to your
sheet, I
mowing
don't know who
contract,
you
only
could
charge
borrow a
whenever you get
spec
done.
sheet from.
Exactly. Yeah, you wouldn't be paying them unless
I
they
mean, I'm
actually
sure
did it.
you guys could write up a good one.
We can see what other counties have out there.
So what did you just put on?
So the truck then is useless, is that what you're saying?
Truck was.
It's not repairable?
20 years ago.
There were issues with it mechanically, and they did several different things to it, and it was gonna be like thousands and thousands more dollars to completely fix it. I'm not sure if it's running at all now,
I would say Josh will-
but definitely not plow. I can't plow.
We're still gonna need a truck.
Yeah, it has been a few weeks since we talked about it, so I don't remember the particular issues, but I know that he came to me and said, do you want to have it fixed? And it was like $5,000, and I said, no, just stop, because we had already put a chunk into it at that point. And he was looking at a couple other used ones that were around, some more trucks that were potential options that were used, but they had miles on them, and it was like $13,000 for the one, and
Oh, this was
so we just said, hold up, let's just see. Figured we talked to you guys.
Oh, well, we have a separate list of like what other counties have put in there on that end. Yeah.
But if we are going to try to run an excess levy, which would be in 26, right? We need to really start that process now.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Orem
yeah,
has so
you have to-
graciously offered.
Yeah. So we need to go through that, make sure we all know what those steps are, and try to not screw it up so we can do it the right way.
Did Randolph County ever ask if they ran 2 times? See, Brewer doesn't have one, us, Pendleton, all the southern counties have them. Brewer that 6, what, 6 now, 7?
No, there's more now because several didn't. I think there was like 4 or 5 that
Didn't
didn't
pass.
pass. this
Gilmer's
last time.
never had
So I
one.
think there's like 12 now that don't have,
Really?
counties that don't have excess levy from ones that did not pass this last time.
Well, once you lose one, it's hard.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Because
mean.
we don't have the halls
if you
and
guys,
boys
if you have ideas, throughout
hand
the
out
add it to that list and.
brochures down in June, used to hand out brochures against it.
Well, if these boot camps would work, and I think how you would link that would be with, well, there won't be any 3 hour late arrival or those 3 hour things. People seem to really hate those where they get
Yeah.
out early.
You still have to have your faculty sentence and stuff by code and all that still required. So you'd have to have some still.
But maybe
But it
not
would
as
help.
many. It
Yeah.
seemed like every other week or something there was something.
Yeah, we have.
And that's really difficult, especially if you have older kids that maybe don't go to, they're greater than third grade and they can't go to a daycare or something. And so they end
Sure.
up being latchkey kids and
Yeah.
because there's not grandma or someone else to watch them. That always scares me that they're home.
If no one has any other questions about that, the next tab is updating to policy 8100. We just had our spring ASBO, and right after that, 8100 went out for comment. So if anyone would like to read it, or it's out for public comment right now. But this was just an update on prior to that, actually last year during the summer. This was one of the main changes. Was to bids, they increased the 5,000 limit to 10,000. So bids are not required until you get over 10,000. And then it pretty much all stays the same as how it was prior. Before the cutoff was 5,000. And it's now 10,000. The other thing that they tried to get that then failed and then didn't make it through legislation this past session was like the subscription piece. For instance, with the textbooks, we don't get the actual book anymore. We do the 5-year subscription piece to the online textbook. According to the state, in theory, you can't enter into that 5-year contract or 5-year subscription lease. You should pay year by year. So they were trying to get it through to where for subscription software, that type of thing, you could enter into that. We did it because last year it was going to cost us $150,000 more to not do it. So
We did it
we
anyway.
did it. Because in order for the textbook company to agree to bill us annually for that and not the 5 years, it was going to be a difference of, I think it was like 128 or 132 or 38, something like that, $1,000. And I'm sure those textbook companies are on that rotation where they get everything up front. Like they're not wanting, so they're gonna.
They need to know you're gonna stick with
Right.
them, yeah.
And they cost you more because they haven't gotten a payment from you for those 5 years. So anyway, that was one of the reasons that they were going. I mean, I understand why a lot of these rules and regulations were originally put in place, because I'm sure you would have had counties just entering into every 5-year, 10-year contract they could for stuff that they used 2 years and just decided they didn't want to use it and then they just did away. Like there's good reason, but sometimes you need to be able to rationalize things as well and say, this is something that we've done all these years. We're going to continue to do it. Let us save money by signing a 5-year contract versus a year-to-year one, which increases the cost of things. But anyway, that was one of the main changes in 8100. We can, once that is finally through public comment and goes through the whole process, we can look at it in greater detail if you guys want to.
I'll read it again.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. I appreciate that. We have a PowerPoint here.
I don't know who they. We
Me
have like
either.
a, they have like a comic book, do they have a comic book edition of it?
You want that flip note?
There you go.
I don't. Maybe. That was that update. I don't think there was anything more there. The email behind it's just saying that they did accept that waiver request last July to go ahead and put that in through.
The only other thing, the state's now requiring the 3 years. See that? New treasurers. They're requiring them to be mentored for 3 years.
Oof.
Well, how much in
You're
gonna
gonna
get
run all day,
paid? I'll bring all day.
They're gonna require what? Yeah,
But
there
they
is it
used to
now.
be the-
That page right there.
Mentor.
Oh,
Treasurers, new treasurers have to be
time
mentored
that.
for
I
3
don't
years
know
now.
what happened, but
Even if they're,
20 years for that?
yeah.
Just new ones.
Just new ones, yeah, just new ones coming into the position now.
And so
If
you're willing to
as a
serve.
mentor, here we go, talking to you. Well,
Did you sign up?
I'm not signed up. I'm not sure when the time would be.
How you're gonna manage that?
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would manage that. But they're actually issuing grants, 20,000 a year to counties for the mentoring costs.
That's nice.
I didn't realize how many counties didn't do their own financial statements, but that's outsourced. There's 15, one guy said 15 counties.
That's crazy.
It just
Mhm.
just blows my mind.
That did what?
The financial statements, the year-end financial statements.
contract them
They
out.
Contracted out.
So evidently their treasurer is not a CPA or not experienced enough to do it.
Yeah, we're busy. I mean, I don't know.
Mhm. Any of those
other
things.
things. I guess there could be a,
But with the
Range of reasons.
programs, it's gonna populate most of your fields. I mean, I know you have to
Still
check
have
that
to-
stuff. I know you have to check it and
so you have
put
to
your
know where
proofs. Yeah.
Where it goes.
someone in that position should be able to do it. But I mean, you still have to know where those numbers come from
Mm-hmm.
to put them in the first place, but I could see how it could be overwhelming. It's a lot. It's a lot in those spreadsheets. They're, I think the one's like 300 and some sheets. It could be a little much maybe. And then the last tab is just the solar. We keep getting emails. We went through the process of having them fill out the paperwork to grandfather us in. I think, was it December 31st was the deadline? To where if you entered
Yes.
into solar, you got the higher rate from the electric company.
December
Um,
31st or
Installation
we did
has
it.
to
Yeah,
be
I don't remember.
Completed by
It
June.
was 2 years after, I
construction.
think.
you have to begin your construction by January of 2026.
Yeah.
Well,
So I think it cost us $30 or something.
I was thinking it was like 300. Is that wrong?
Was it 300?
I think it might have
was
been
very
$300.
Small in the scheme of what we would get in the next year and a half.
Yeah.
We did decide to do that because the rates were coming
Yeah, it was going
way
to save
down
you
as to
tremendously.
what you would be reimbursed for on the amount of electricity. I don't understand all that stuff on the kilowatts that you're saving or whatever.
Yeah.
The ones before that will be paid at one rate and going forward it will be at a different rate. So we went ahead and
You did a wonderful job. Your check raise will be in
be in the mail. Should I hold my breath?
I did that today. I put it in the mailbox. You're certified, so you're accepted.
Have those folks that I spoke with, have they gotten back with you? The
ones
solar
were they?
people, you know, they did the solar field out at American Woodlawn.
Yeah, nobody's reached out here.
It would be interesting to hear what they're doing for American Woodmark.
I don't know. And these folks, we need to just know from you guys if you want us to pursue, because it would be something that we've got to get
Yeah, it would
Rolling
take
with
us that
Like if you
long.
want-
by June,
I
yeah,
mean, if you
January and
want them to come
June.
Present something
Or East Hardy.
or if we want to put it out.
Well, and you got to figure out where you'd want to put it. I think East Hardy
The
Elementary,
one high school, or no, the one
Was
school
it-
is they could use the roof.
yeah, which was East Hardy Elementary.
Because of the HDO roof or the condition of it, it would still have.
Enough life left, yeah.
Um, to put those on there, gain kilowatts from it, or, you know, like save energy from it, and then be able to actually pay off the cost of them at the same time.
Would like to see it pursued. I think.
We can have them come back and just present what they would recommend we do, and then you guys can vote and decide from there. Because we'll have to, if you want to do it, we've got to
And then we
yeah.
would, if it is something you guys wanna do, we would have to put it out
forbid.
for bid for an RFP.
Well, I'm sure you guys have heard, but supposedly up at the or at the intermediate school, that the Kreitzes are gonna put a whole bunch of housing in there.
I have not heard that.
That they purchased the land off the Inskigs, that it was 25 acres that they denied us. We tried to buy the whole tract.
Oh, okay.
And where
And,
Roy's corn maze used to be?
no, that's
No.
on us.
Oh,
Because I don't think Mr. Inskip would let us touch his land.
No.
Oh,
He
okay.
was not a happy camper because we did have to condemn him, but supposedly they bought that and they're
Okay.
gonna build housing there, 90 housing units, is that?
We need
what it
housing.
is?
They're already working on the road out there.
What? So where is it?
Right past the middle school where it goes into Caledonia,
Yeah,
right at the turn, right off there.
Okay. On the right or on the left? So out
Yes,
past.
in
Okay,
that
okay,
field.
okay, okay. That'd be great.
Might get us more students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
housing's an
housing.
issue for sure.
Families, maybe families and not retirees.
Okay. Good to
And
know. I didn't know that.
can't imagine retirees wanting to go into a complex like that rather than.
Yeah.
Someplace enjoyable.
You never know.
Like that Fort Road Hollow.
Absolutely, where I can pull the road in.
That's what Wilbur always said, he closed.
Pull the road in, absolutely.
Anyone have anything else for me?
Excellent.
Pick
If
me up.
there's anything else that you guys wanted, I will look at those couple things. See that we talked about, and a couple things I took notes on. I think Warren has the,
Check
Yeah,
your
you're
check your bill.
Yeah,
No,
he
you-
has something else.
Legal financial
You do a lot
updates.
for us
We never go
and
back.
keep us on track.
I don't wanna make it hard and get tight on funds or anything like that, but yeah.
We make it
You feel the squeeze worse than we
Right, yeah.
would, knowing you as conscientious as you are.
I'll just try to make everything work at that point would be an extra.
If you ever get a deal, I'm gonna come visit
Think
next week.
Now, Mr. Hunt, I told you, I will not look at.
I'm out.
So,
Last
Right.
time.
let's say,
Orange
We'll
is
get
not a
you-
good color.
We'll get you a blue.
Orange is
We'll
not
get you a
new.
blue.
You know, one.
Yeah, okay.
It's funny when you go to court and you see some of their former students. in those suits. I mean, one of the people.
So my understanding is that there were some questions about how there's interworking between a couple of the various policies, particularly 8100, 8200, and part of the West Virginia Code as it relates to authorizing expenditures. So combed through both of those policies as well as the code and have excerpts there that each of you have a copy of. Starting first with the West Virginia Code. So anytime that we have something that is based upon a code section, we have to start with the code. Policy will follow thereafter. When there's conflicts between policy as well as the code, we have to start with that code because obviously we can't violate the law first and foremost. So if you look down to about halfway down the page there, and I apologize that the highlights didn't show up on the copies there. Halfway down the paragraph on code 18-9-3, the sentence starts, the order shall be signed by the president and shall be countersigned by the secretary. The inner working here and what I think is important to note is that this code does provide language to allow authorizations of signatures, and the general overarching message that I'm seeing in the interplay between these two policies and code is the potential for ratification of expenditures. So this code obviously controls and permits the use of mechanical or electronic devices as the board may select for signatures to be authorized, which starts the process of that ratification of the expenditures. Then if you move to the second page, it should have a 17 at the bottom. That is actually an excerpt from policy 8100. If you look at section 3.2, that is the portion of the policy which reverts to West Virginia Code 1893, which stipulates the treasurer shall pay money only upon the order of the board. So taking those two, just those two in conjunction is yes, the expenditures have to be by the order of the board. However, 18-9-3 allows that signature ahead of time, either by mechanical or electronic means. So that is something I think to note with regard to those two and the work that they have with each other. And then if you turn to the next page, actually it will be to the last page, I believe, which should have a number 2 at the bottom. I apologize, that's out of order, but if you look at section 2.3, they're up at the top, and this is the of policy 8200. The governing body is responsible for the purchasing, receiving, safeguarding, and disposing of all goods and services obtained or used. This authority may be delegated to the superintendent or director or to a designee. And I think that language and further, again, taking that one step further with the 8100 to the code to this section allows that flexibility a little bit further. And then finally, if you go back to the prior page there, it should be 17. Approval, and in order to ensure that all necessary purchases are made, all purchases must have the prior approval of an employee who has supervisory authority over the individual initiating the purchase request, and that's at section 18.1. The relation between these policies and the code, what I think it does is it starts with, yes, you all need, as a board, need to approve all the expenditures that come out. But I think that it allows a lot of flexibility into when that can occur. And I think that by the nature of taking all of these together allows essentially a ratification process so that it is something that provides opportunity to get bills paid ahead of time so that we don't incur late charges, don't have extensive meetings ahead of time, and being under stricter timeframes to get those bills paid. And because of that, I think that it's something for you all to consider as how these can work. And I'm obviously here to help interpret what these policies, what they do, what they don't do. I think it's important to note too, not necessarily with regard to policy drafting, but as it relates to West Virginia Code, something that is important to note is that if you have West Virginia Code 1-1-1, and then the legislature comes back and does 2-2-2, if those are conflicting and 2-2-2 says something completely opposite to 1-1-1 says it overrides it. So I think that starting first and foremost with the premise that yes, you all are the gatekeeper, so to speak, on the expenditure process, but in consideration of policy 8100, that the writers took that into consideration when drafting 8200, which was sequentially thereafter, and still, again, relying on 18-9-3. So just a little bit of my interpretation, if you will, on how these policies work together, as well as being in compliance with the code as well.
Well, it makes sense. It's just that we've been to training and they tell us the opposite. And that's why it was questioned.
Sure.
But I mean, it makes sense. I certainly don't want our bills to become delinquent or anything like that. That's not appropriate.
And if I may, was that question posed to the presenter as to how that process is to happen to make sure that there is smooth transactions occurring so that those late fees or additional costs aren't incurred as a result of trying to front load it and have prior approval versus a ratification process?
I don't think that was ever
No,
came into play. They just, was generic.
And the interpretation from the presenter was it needed to be 100% approved ahead of time before it would be, in order to be in compliance with code? Okay.
And I think that part of that too is because it's the board's responsibility to make sure that the bills that are being paid are not fraudulent's not the right word.
Are legitimate.
Legitimate. So in the instance that you get a bill that's me paying Sarah for something that came from the brewery out state or something that looked like, an illegal purchase, you are obligated to vote against that particular thing because in the end, we're not allowed to pay it.
Sure.
I think that otherwise, you're obligated to approve payment for legitimate within the law expenditures as long as they were done in the appropriate manner, right? Like, so the idea of the board approving that is to look for things that are illegal, fraudulent, misappropriation of funds, not following. Is that correct?
I think that it is clear that it requires board approval for all expenditures. However, the timing of that, I think, is
Right.
what is open to interpretation
Right.
on it, so as to not bog down and front load things, because the various policies are very, very clear on being able to delegate not only purchasing authority or just authority that the policies themselves bestow on individuals like the superintendents of the schools, but also even signatures on the front end.
Or offers.
So that is
That
something
makes
too that
sense.
I think is, I think that it allows more flexibility than what may have been provided.
Mhm.
Because we are in a day and age where transactions are having to occur almost immediately. But there again, as Dr. Bailey was pointing out, ensuring that there is still checks and balances to avoid any improper or fraudulent expenditures too.
Yeah.
So should our verbiage be that we ratify the purchases since it's after the fact?
That's a legal term of art for just that exact process.
But not the
It's a
Sorry,
The payment.
not the purchases.
Yeah,
Because, I mean,
the
that's
pay
where I get
purchases are
hung up,
done.
Because
Yeah.
you don't have to approve the purchase or the service if it's under a certain amount. You just have to approve. the payment.
Right. So I can authorize a purchase up to $100,000
If you're not-
without board
at that
approval.
point,
But it's the payment of that bill then that it says that you all have to then ratify. So basically the purchase has already been made.
Right, and
So you're
that's
authorizing it to be
not-
paid.
And it used to be that the board, they had to approve everything.
Mhm.
And they've gotten away from that, just
Yeah.
like the architectural stuff, we had to be involved in that. And it's like, after I had asked about that, and it's like, I'm thinking, for goodness sakes, Dix, it's for windows and doors.
Well, and
What
that's
do
okay.
What do they need us for?
Yeah. And
You
the board will still approve that firm.
Yeah, you're going.
Yeah. It's
you're
still
going-
coming to you guys.
You're
Yeah.
going to vent to my gas. You're gonna.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna find out exactly what's going on, and
Yeah.
we choose to approve or we choose not to approve
Correct.
what they're doing.
Correct. And then we would bring you
And
another.
that's honestly probably the best way, given the opinion that a lot of people have about the boards anymore, that, our state superintendent thinks we're idiots, so.
The state superintendent, is that what you said?
Well,
Did she say? Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I
She
think
didn't
she
trust the
made the
boards.
comment that, yeah.
Oh, okay, I
So,
didn't hear that.
yeah, she's gotten on her pony with the legislature that, you know, that we'd be very easy to do without and to save.
What, no superintendents? No superintendents?
No, school boards that were,
I hadn't heard, yeah.
local boards that were,
Or when they talked about putting like regional.
Oh, regionalizing it.
they talked about doing a study on that, and especially if you're on one of those, boo-boo lists.
And it didn't pass, it got voted
Yeah,
down.
that didn't happen because I'm sure they couldn't think of a method to be able to join those folks into, but they will,
Sure they will.
because they've been trying it forever.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Yeah. So, but I still think that, that your boards, if you have a good board.
Yeah.
Can help to enhance the educational program, especially if you're advocating for your students,
For sure.
for the kids. But, you know, like the Southern things, what they said, they were too political. It was all political. And if that's all your board's doing, then yeah, it's a waste.
That's been Mingo County, and those counties forever.
Well,
Logan,
So. But I agree with you, Warren, looking at these three pieces that,
It's just something for you all to consider. Think that it should be something for a future agenda too, just so we have clarity as to how to proceed forward. I'm happy to provide any supplements or any questions that you all have that you want me to follow up on or dig deeper on. I'm obviously happy to do that.
so if,
I will say I didn't find any case law on any of this
Yeah.
specifically. So it doesn't appear that it's been something that's been challenged in court. From what I could find, in my research so far anyway, in West Virginia.
but even like with textbooks and stuff, look how much that is, and you guys choose, and
And we'll bring that to you tonight to approve because of the amount, and then you guys will approve that purchase ahead of time for sure.
yeah.
Because it is a lot.
And we would need to, I mean, to do it the other way would probably cause it, I mean, we probably need some additional board meetings throughout the year. You couldn't, every once in a while, we hit a month where the first and the third,
You have that
it's
fifth.
weird, and then there's like a 2.5 week,
Yeah.
you know, like, we wouldn't be able, sometimes we receive, especially with the mail works these days, I mean, we might receive a bill one day and it's due 7 days later. You know, or even if it's 10, you still need to get it processed and in the mail and sent back out to get back in that 10-day period. And we have several that come that way. No, not all of them, but there's a lot of times where some that come that way, so it would.
Well, it all makes sense, and I mean, I have full confidence in you all, and I'm sure all of us do, but when we go to training and they tell us something different, it's like, you know.
Is the ratification language, Kim Crowell had said that to me at one time, to use the language ratification, because that's essentially what's happening. Are you comfortable with that on the agenda?
The implementation of ratification as the.
Ratification of invoices to be paid or
Oh, as
on
a-
the
as a
language as opposed to
moving
approval of.
Agenda item. And
Yeah.
Yes.
And then that way it doesn't look like you're doing something that you're not doing.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It would fix the problem essentially.
It
It'd be
would
very-
be obvious what's happened.
In an ideal circumstance, it would look a lot like personnel decisions then, is that you come with a list of what those are. And if there needs to be discussion on things, or it needs to be tabled to provide additional information, you're still addressing it. And then being able to go from there.
Yeah.
I think think we can change that language then to make it more
Yeah, I think
appropriate.
that'd be good. And it's very, I mean, with ratification, it's very obvious that you're approving something that's already taken place.
And then if you don't, you have recourse to
Sure.
be able to
Right.
correct it.
Motion to adjourn.
Who seconded? You?
At 3:36. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And we're adjourned by that.